call this meeting to order. Welcome to everybody. It's nice to see some faces in our chambers. Welcome to everybody. Roll call, please.
Mayor Luis Trujillo.
Present.
Councilor David Romero.
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilor Michael Montoya.
Present.
Councilor David Ulibarri Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to take a couple of moments here to recognize the passing of a former city councilman, Mr. Carlos Gallegos, passed away last week. Just to his family, I extend my condolences, and also for Carlos, just rest in peace, Carlos, and just take a moment of silence for that. Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Romero.
Also, if we could have a moment of silence, Miss Darlene, she works with the attorney, her father-in-law also passed. We can have a moment of silence for Mr. Ben Trujillo.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, approval of the agenda.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Montoya. A second, please.
I second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
Councilor Montoya.
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Montoya, second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Montoya?
May I amend that to include ordinances number 2114 and 2113 additions that we received today on the charter, on the agenda?
To add that to the record?
Corrections, include those corrections on that motion?
Okay.
Yes.
Is the second okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya.
Mr. Mayor, next is nomination of Mayor Pro Tem. As per municipal charter, Mayor Pro Tem shall serve 1-year term.
This time, I'd like to open the floor to any nominations for Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to be recognized, please. I'd like to nominate Councilman David Romero.
Thank you.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Ulibarri. Any other nominations? Nomination ceased. Roll call us, please.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Montoya.
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, a second by Councilor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, councilors. Appreciate it.
That's a yes. You accept?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Done an
you've
excellent
done an excellent job, David, and I'm glad that we're going to continue, but you've done a great job.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Just make sure you continue that work of excellence.
Thank you.
Public input, please.
Mr. Mayor, I have 4 public input. If I may read those.
Go ahead, Cassandra.
The first one is from Mr. Lee Miner, and this is in reference to ordinance 2114. There's just so many things wrong with this ordinance. It is an embarrassment that the thing was even presented to you publicly for consideration. I'm not a lawyer and can't tell you everything wrong with it, but I will tell you what jumps out at me as a layman. Proposed ordinance creates a new category of vehicle, a play vehicle, and defines it as follows. Play vehicles shall mean tricycles, unicycles, skateboards, hoverboards, scooters, roller skates, rollerblades, electronically propelled bicycle, and any other wheeled conveyance, whether motorized, non-motorized, propelled electrically, alternatively, or human propelled. Keeping that definition fully in mind, let's view some other language in this ordinance. Section 12.8.13, lamps and other equipment on bicycles and play vehicles. A, every bicycle or play vehicle when in use at nighttime shall be equipped with a lamp on the front which shall emit a white light visible from a distance of at least 500 feet the front and with a red reflector on the rear, a type approved by the state of New Mexico as found in NMSA 663707, which shall be visible from all distances from 50 feet to 300 feet to the rear when directly in front of lawful upper beams of headlamps on motor vehicles. A lamp emitting a red light visible from a distance of 500 feet to the rear may be used in addition to the red reflector. B, no person shall operate a bicycle or play vehicle unless it is equipped with a bell or other device capable of giving a signal audible for a distance of at least 100 feet, except that a bicycle or play vehicle should not be equipped with, nor shall any person use upon a bicycle or play vehicle any siren or unreasonably loud whistle. C, every bicycle and play vehicle should be equipped with a brake, which will enable the operator to make the brake wheel skid on dry, level, clean pavement. Again, play vehicles include skateboards, roller skates, rollerblades. Can you imagine skateboards with high-power headlights, tail light, and bell and brakes? How about roller skates and rollerblades thus equipped? It's ludicrous. Here's another gem, 12-18-12, carrying articles. No person operating a bicycle or play vehicle shall carry any package, bundle, or article which prevents the operator from keeping at least one hand upon the handlebar or other steering mechanism. Imagine trying to ride and keep one hand upon the steering mechanism of your roller skates or your skateboard. This also is ridiculous. The consistent error here is applying language and standards meant for bicycles to the new category of play vehicles, even when doing so is nonsensical. Problem takes a worse turn when traffic rules intended for roadway bicycle traffic are applied to play vehicles. Remember, this means we are applying those standards, for example, to children on roller skates. Do you really want children on roller skates or rollerblades forfeiting right away to motor vehicles and in other ways having to conform to traffic rules for roadway bicycle traffic? That's part of what's being proposed here. This proposed ordinance is not business friendly. 12.8.11 of the proposed ordinance states in pertinent part that no person shall park a bicycle or play vehicle upon public property, city property, or within 50 yards of an establishment that sells or serves alcohol, cannabis, or cannabis products. Why an absolute ban on parking bicycles and play vehicles on public property and city property, and why on earth can't I park my bike on or near the premises if I want to drop by the Castaneda or the New York Pizza department for lunch? Who does this serve? It is hostile to business and hostile to bicyclists. No good can come of it. Finally, to the meat of the matter, I believe this was inspired in response to a young entrepreneur starting up a scooter rental business here in town. So he gets buried in red tape, licensing, and fees. Why do you want to beat this young man down? It's not right. It seems mean-spirited and personal. But beyond that, he is required under this proposed ordinance to force customers to sign a waiver of rights that is almost certainly unenforceable and definitely objectionable. 8, each shared transportation entity shall sign a writing agreeing to defend, hold harmless, and indemnify the city and any and all officers, employees, or agents of the city relating to any liabilities, injuries, or damages that may arise from the entity's operation of its shared transportation services within city limits. 9, each shared transportation entity shall require each person who uses the shared transportation services within the city limits to sign an agreement which shall include the following provisions: to defend, hold harmless, and indemnify the city and any and all officers, employers, or agents of the city relating to any liabilities, injuries, or damages that may arise from the operator's use the shared transportation services within the city limits. Each operator shall forever waive any claims against the city arising out of the design, construction, maintenance, repair, or dangerous conditions of the city's roadways. 3, by choosing to ride a bicycle or play vehicle, the operator assumes all responsibilities and risk for any and all injuries, damages, and/or medical conditions. 4, every and all operator shall forever waive any class action rights they may have regarding the use of the shared transportation services. And 5, all disputes arising out of or in connection with any operator's use of the shared transportation services shall be finally settled pursuant to binding arbitration by one or more arbitrators pursuant to the rules of the American Arbitration Association. Look, you cannot with this kind of legal mumbo jumbo do away with people's rights to sue. It is part of the right to petition for the redress of grievances. If we have been wrong, we have a right to access and activate the U.S. legal system to address that wrong. Courts have struck down contracts like the one proposed here and time again. You can magically make people's rights go away like that, nor should you. You already, as a political subdivision of the state, have protection from frivolous suits under the Torts Claims Act. If a minor is injured due to not wearing a helmet, the Child Helmet Safety Act protects you. Where the city is unprotected is where it fails to maintain the streets, roads, and other infrastructure in a safe condition. I ride a motorcycle, not a scooter, but when I ride in town, I have to be extra careful to avoid large, deep potholes that could easily grab my front tire and cause an accident. Because you know and I know we've got them. That's not a scooter problem or a bicycle problem or a motorcycle problem. It is a pothole problem. The best way for the city to protect itself from this liability, the pothole liability, is not with an ordinance, it's with asphalt and shovels. Secondly, Diane Luna, I am writing in support of this Scoot and Go business that would like to have scooters available for rent across town. This promotes activity which is important for our citizens. Thank you. This is the Las Vegas Arts Council. Counselors, I know you have a decision to make about the scooters. I believe that you have concerns for both public safety and economic development, and I respect your concern for both. I also understand that fun is not your highest priority, but you aren't unilaterally opposed to it either. We the people are not guaranteed safety. We have lost lives to accidents related to cars, motorcycles, bicycles, and safely asleep at home in bed. We cannot hold you to a perfect standard of keeping us safe from everything, and you shouldn't ask that of yourselves. If you create responsible, sensible ordinances that will apply, safety is then left up to the individual citizen. My understanding is that Mr. Trudeau has done everything you have asked of him on his own time and continued to work for the city on our time. If parking is still an issue, I ask you to negotiate. That I expect is the least of the safety issues and part of advertising their availability. These scooters already have a track record. They have worked successfully in other communities, and I think we should give them every opportunity to succeed here. Please support this new small business and approve. If you still have reservations, please consider a 3-month trial period and evaluate and reconsider in 90 days. Thank you for your dedicated service to our community and your time. This is Susie Saity, Executive Director. And the last one is in reference to Ordinance 21-14 from Karina Laszlo Henry. She lives on Fifth Street. I write to urge the governing body to not pass Ordinance 21-14 because the ordinance is inconsistent with the state law. 2, it was impermissibly enacted in response to a single existing business. And 3, it does not accomplish the governing body's goals of improving safety and reducing the city's liability. There is a comprehensive scheme covering the same subject matter in state law, and the ordinance is inconsistent with that scheme. Home rule municipalities can enact ordinances that cover the same subject matter as state law and impose lesser or higher penalties for the same conduct, for example, but they cannot prohibit activity that state law makes lawful or declare something lawful that is prohibited by state law. As used in the Motor Vehicle Code, A, electric personal assistive mobility device means a self-balancing device having 2 non-tandem wheels designed to transport a single person by means of an electric propulsion system with an average power of 1 horsepower and with a maximum speed on a paved level surface of less than 20 miles per hour, and powered solely by its propulsion system and while being ridden by an operator who weighs 170 pounds. NMSA 1978, Section 66, 1-4.5 definitions. NMSA 1978, Section 66-3, 1102 goes on to regulate these devices, the equipment required, safe operation, and penalties. It states in relevant part, C, an operator of an electric personal assistive mobility device traveling on a sidewalk, roadway, or bicycle path shall have the rights and duties of a pedestrian and shall exercise due care to avoid colliding with pedestrians. An operator shall yield the right-of-way to pedestrians. Compare this to the language in Ordinance 21-14, and the conflict is apparent. Section 12-8.4 stating that operators of play vehicles shall be granted all of the rights and shall be subject to all the duties applicable to the driver of a vehicle, and Section 12.8.8 requiring operators of play vehicles to yield the right-of-way to motor vehicles on a roadway. This creates a serious safety issue. State legislators, with input from experts, determined that operators of these types of devices, like pedestrians, should always have the right-of-way over automobiles. In so doing, they imposed a duty on operators of motor vehicles to exercise due care to avoid harming them. Your ordinance has turned this duty upside down. State law also empowers municipalities to regulate businesses by requiring registration for all businesses and licenses for certain types of businesses when it is conducive to the promotion of the health and general welfare of the municipality, and requires the licensing fees to bear a reasonable relation to the regulation of the business. See NMSA 1978, Section 338(1). Current specially regulated businesses may be found in our ordinances at Section 160-16 through 160-25. Revisions to these special licensing requirements for businesses should only impose fees that are empirically supported by the additional administrative burden that regulating that type of business places on the municipality. Finally, it is an open question of law whether the waiver of liability provisions in Ordinance 2114 would be enforceable or deemed superseded by the New Mexico Tort Claims Act, particularly with regard to minor operators and particularly when the city is acting under a revenue sharing agreement with the business. Open questions of law can prove to be very expensive. If the city of Las Vegas wants to accomplish the goal of reducing liability, the better approach is to continue to focus on the maintenance of roadways, streets, alleys, sidewalks, and parking areas. See NMSA 1978, Section 41-411, making municipalities subject to suit for negligence in limited areas. Please do not pass ordinance 21-14. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Cassandra.
That concludes public input. Our next item is mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations.
Mr. Mayor, we have a guest here who wanted to make public input.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kate Shoemaker. I'm speaking on behalf of Bird Rides.
You come to the front. You can come to.
Coming from the behalf of Bird Rides, and would like to propose just our support for the business and Elias in getting the scooters already here. So thank you for having me today. And here to answer any questions. And I was checking into the hotel and there was someone on the phone asking, is there any ride share? And it was weird timing, but it was the assistant at the hotel said there's no Uber, there's no taxi. You would have to drive. So I see coming here, driving around the streets, the opportunity for Bird to bring a lot to the community. And so would love to just propose that change in the section for parking to allow us to run our business.
Thank you. So can I ask a question? So if there's not a change in that wording, then Bird will no longer, it's likely that they won't operate.
Agree, yes. So the wording in the parking now states that you need to park the vehicles on specific roadways or a specific private property. That is not how the model works. The kind of goal of our business model is ultimately to provide ultimate flexibility for people so that we can see where they need to go. If they're stranded at a friend's house or if they're at a specific hotel, they're able to get to where they want to go. It also is going to help tremendously to stimulate just like the economy, because essentially we see that it promotes more spontaneous spend. So being able to have a scooter and make a stop, at the shop or so forth. So we do need the ability to have them parked within the public right away. We'll do our best to educate riders, to point out parking locations, and to have our fleet manager do his work in ensuring that the vehicles are reparked and rebalanced throughout the day.
Okay, I have a question.
Mr. Rich, wouldn't this topic be when we're on the subject?
Yeah, she just showed up with public input for.
Are you going to be around or are you leaving?
Yeah, I can wait if we want to hold it for
Okay.
the agenda later.
I appreciate you coming.
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you for having me.
Welcome. Next order of business?
Mayor, your mayor's report, if you have one. You don't have any appointments or proclamations.
I don't, but I do have Akari Akari, pretty soon will be live in person. One of our puppies from our animal shelter. Akari looks, well, they tell me he's a 5-year pit bull. He's a huge sweetheart, enjoys walking and loves investigating everything he finds. Anyway, to adopt a dog, it's $100, and that includes spay neuter, age-appropriate vaccines, microchip, a city license, etc. If you are interested in this little beautiful puppy, stop by tomorrow and take him home with you. You can also make donations to the animal shelter at any time of food, water. Not water, we have water. Food, toys, blankets, hay, anything like that that doggies and cats like. So you're always welcome to make a donation for them too. So please support them. Thank you. And as far as the report goes, it's been an interesting week. I met with Rotary Club 2 weeks ago, and I met with both Kiwanis clubs this week. So it's been very interesting. They're very excited about what's happening in Las Vegas, and they're also just wanted a State of the City type of address, and met with them throughout these 2 weeks. So it's been really interesting and nice to visit with people face to face now, and no more Zoom Kiwanis meetings, and so that was really pleasant and nice. So other than that, I thank them for welcoming me to their meetings. Other than that, DOT met with Department of Transportation and the commissioner and an artist, a mural artist. A couple of people met to see how they could decorate the outgoing sign that says "Welcome to Las Vegas" on the other side. They realized that there's a huge canvas there, so they're interested in getting a beautiful mural there that possibly looks like our seal that says "Thank you, please come back" on this end of town. So that was really exciting too. But other than that, that's my report for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next on the agenda is council's reports.
Councilors?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
I'd just like to report that I know you and I have met with, Dr. Taylor have met with, and over the phone, with Help New Mexico, that the city of Las Vegas will be getting 35 youth employees from between the ages of 16 and 18, as long as they're still in high school. That's positive. There's 80 in the county has been allocated 80 positions, and the city was able to obtain 35. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and Dr. Taylor. And also, we had a community meeting at the Samaritan House with concerns pertaining to situations that we're having at Lincoln Park and some of the businesses, and that looked positive, and we're going to continue with the second meeting, and that was myself, Dr. Taylor, both chiefs, deputy chiefs, Councilor Montoya. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an update.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Councilors? Next order of business, please.
Police chief's report. Major Eric Padilla.
Welcome, Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Ms. Brescia said, my name is, for those that don't know me, my name is Major Eric Padilla. I'm the major for the Las Vegas Police Department. So I'm here on behalf of Chief Adrian Crispin and to give his report on some of the bullet points that he wished for me to address with Mayor and Council and members of our community.
Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, sir. As far as the Las Vegas Police Department for the month of April, the police department, between fire, ambulance, and police calls for service, we had 1,522 calls for service. 1,242 of those were answered by our police officers. The options as far as narcotics, 2 grams of cocaine, 25 fentanyl pills, 25 grams of methamphetamine, and 2 grams of heroin. The police department did send 5 police officers to attend a major vehicle theft investigation training in Albuquerque, which when I spoke with them said was really good class that they did enjoy attending. We had an officer attend illegally justified, but was it avoidable training? As far as our recruitment, we did have a new hire last month, and we had two. That new hire was for dispatch, and she's female, Antoinette Russell. She's in there, and she's doing very well that I've seen. Two recruits, one who is a seasoned officer with more than 20 years has joined the police department, and one brand new cadet officer took our position. We did have a graduate from the Law Enforcement Academy, which is Officer Patrick Mays, did graduate the Law Enforcement Academy. Our flock camera systems, I know Deputy Chief Stumberg has probably given quite a few presentations on our flock camera system that's set up through the City of Las Vegas, which last month did pick up 3 stolen vehicles that did come into our city, one of which our officers located at Walmart, and the individual in that vehicle was a bank robbery suspect out of Colorado, which he was apprehended and took him into custody. And to commend the officers, Officer Michael Ortega and Clint Sandoval, which did an outstanding job on that incident. The Deputy Chief wanted me to inform you that we will be having speed operations coming up and for loud pipes. We did have 10 vehicles that had a track system install. That track system install is like an e-citation. It's a bar scanner, which will scan license, driver's license, and it'll print out citations out moving forward. And that's all I have for this report. I'll stand for any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
In the May 12th City Council meeting, and the police chief report, I asked if they could do some kind of public announcement informing the public in regards to the purpose of the cameras, because residents were calling kind of concerned about the cameras and didn't know who had placed the cameras. Do you know if they've done anything regarding informing the public or our residents in regards to the cameras?
As far as a public service announcement, I'm not sure, but I can give a brief history for whoever's watching right now and just inform them. I'm not too sure as far as announcement from chief or deputy chief.
Well, I'd like to see something in the newspaper, because not everybody watches the
Sure.
city council meetings. Nice if they did.
I will definitely get that question to them.
Okay.
They're in a training and they'll be back on Friday. Chief.
If they can do maybe something with the optic.
Sure.
Some kind of
Definitely.
article. Thank you.
Mr. Romero?
Major, can you kind of describe how, of course, we're always having the issues on speeding in certain areas. I know South Pacific's one of mine. North Gonzales, Delgado, it's Counselor. But, and we're being told, that you guys are, making an effort to saturate those areas. But from those areas, would you be able to get data as to, the stops that were done at that place, or how would we be able to account? Because they're coming to us, and it seems like, we've called, we've done this, and it's still happening. So that way we could give some data back as to in those areas that we continue to get the calls at.
Sure, absolutely. When our records clerk input the information where the officers did a traffic stop, on the citation, it says where the infraction occurred. So that's in our database into our Tyler system that we operate, our CAD system. So we're able to punch in, let's say North Gonzales and Delgado. I know we've had issues brought to us about that intersection, and we can pull up to see how many citations were given for running that stop sign, or speeding on that area, or speeding on 7th Street on a block number. Same thing for the traffic caches. We have to send that to the Department of Transportation, so that way, when either we have a DWI operation or a speed enforcement operation, we target those areas, because that's where we have a higher volume of traffic, or that the infractions officers are pulling the people over more there. So definitely can pull those stats for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I ask why the chief's not giving this report?
He is in training in
Training.
Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, himself and Deputy Chief, and they will be back on
Okay.
Friday.
And then the other thing is, I had requested that any report the chief gives, that we needed to have on black and white on our agenda,
Yes, sir.
and we didn't get a copy of it.
Okay.
The other thing is, I'd like to know how the camera systems are working and if they've done any, have we had any success with them?
Yes, sir, like the flock cameras, like I stated, they do pull in a lot of, they're designed to, as if anywhere in the state and the NCIC, if somebody reports their vehicle stolen, it goes into that system, and that license plate reader will pick up that vehicle license plate and give the alerts to the officers out there that this is a stolen vehicle, or it's involved in a major crime, this is a homicide suspect, or this is a robbery suspect. And it'll go to the effect of getting pretty close to a make and model, color, pretty good technology. And like I said, sir, last month alone, we recovered 3 stolen vehicles, and one of those which was a bank robbery suspect, which we took into custody last month.
The other thing is, I might want to, you might want to consider next time you relocate those cameras to put one over at Lincoln Park in that area to see what kind of activity is going on with the shelter there in that area.
Sure.
And also, what are you guys doing now in preparation for the 4th of July events?
Today, speaking today, Lieutenant Monica Vigil, which is our liaison with the Fiesta, she did, to get over to Mr. Leo Maestas, it's an incident action plan, which is an operational plan to make sure that we identify all the safety risk analysis. Let's say it's a risk analysis, because we are looking to close it off and make sure that we have access to, that the ambulance gets in there safely. We have public disorder, that we know where to deploy resources. So we are in preparations, and she finished that report today, so we are prepared for that weekend, which we have actually been preparing for the Friday al fresco that we've been having. So we do to make sure that we have the resources just in case something happens, and we build, it's a working document, so the closer we get, I'm sure it's going to change, but we're definitely prepared for that weekend.
Okay, and I encourage you to we have a new ambulance service, and get them on page, with us as to, I don't know if they've ever been involved with such of an event, but get them involved in the process and, so that they're ready also.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
I have a question now. Now that the Little season's up and going, there's a lot of traffic out there, out on Rodriguez. We got both leagues out there. I haven't seen too many of the officers out there patrolling that area. Because you're talking about 200-300 cars almost every afternoon.
Okay.
You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stop signs around that area.
Sure.
But I haven't seen too many of the officers going out there when the baseball games are on.
Okay.
So maybe you could advise the chief and see to get some officers out there.
Sure, I'll make sure that I take care of that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Appreciate it. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, approval of minutes for May 12th, May 19th, and May 26th, 2021.
I'll entertain a motion for approval of those minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero,
Second.
second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have our business items. The first one is presentation by ABI SPL, a digital workplace services provider, and request approval of one or two proposals to upgrade the audiovisual technology in the city council chambers and enter into contract with ABI SPL LLC. Mr. Mayor, we have our IT manager, Kenny Revolt.
Hi, Kenny. Just before we get started, I don't mean to be rude to our guests, but our presentation should be limited. Those presentations should be limited to 10 minutes, if possible. Thank you. Welcome, Kenny.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm here to present the couple of proposals that we got from ABI for remodel of the council room. Today we have Glenn Martinez with me and Adam Back.
Welcome.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi.
Hello. As Kenny said, my name is Glenn Martinez. I am the account manager for the state of New Mexico, and Adam is the design engineer. And we were invited by Kenny to come and take a look at your council chambers and to come and present to you a couple different options that may fit your needs. We have a history of doing council chambers throughout the state. A couple of them that we've done. We've gone through Lee County, Curry County, Española, Taos, to name a few, and we also take care of larger institutions like UNM, CNM, Highland. We've done their boardrooms and stuff like that as well, which kind of looks kind of like the same scenario as this. And we've also done smaller places. We just finished one at high school for their gymnasium a couple weeks ago. So we do have expertise in the audiovisual realm, especially with council chambers. And what we want to do today is kind of go over a couple of the proposals that we sent. There is a price difference by about $30,000 to $35,000 between them, and it is really going to focus more on the different types of microphones and the all-in-one solutions that come with them. Like you guys have your laptops here. One of the solutions will have everything at your fingertips: touch laptop, microphones, speakers, voting capabilities. So, and the other one is going to be a wireless solution, which is going to give you guys it's a sure wireless solution, which will give you guys ability to be, like COVID hit now, you'd be able to separate and still be heard in your meetings and still also record and stream out to the world. So we're using some of the latest technologies, and hopefully it'll last a long time for you guys. Like any technology, you have a recycle of about 5 to 7 years, but we gave you some good equipment that we're hoping will last longer than that, and we'll continue to service with you guys and become partners throughout this whole process.
Just real quick, as you go through your presentation, you guys have seen what we have right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then as you're going through your presentation, obviously we can't update, what we have right now, just the cameras, and just update to the newer stuff. So as you go through your presentation, could you kind of, explain to, maybe there are some of these, hardware items that, if they do get outdated, it's that easy? Will that be included in your?
Yes, yeah, we'll talk about how your recycle, periods are and how we can replace them if need be. All right?
Yeah, let's jump right in. I'll try to cruise through this quick so we can keep it to 10 minutes. One of the goals is to kind of clean up the ceiling a little bit. So we were proposing to start with getting rid of the large black projection screen and the front projector and locate a large flat panel display to the left of the American flag. Obviously that will help kind of keep the seal uncluttered and maybe even move it up a little bit and get a few things off the ceiling. So that's the first display. The second thing is we do want to keep this projector location. We want to move it up tight to the ceiling, and we want to put in a laser projector. So as you guys are familiar with lamp-based projectors, the lamps go out every, say, 2,000 hours. A laser projector will go 20,000 hours. So that's on for 5 years straight. So just expecting a much longer life out of the projector without having to require service. And then, of course, we also want to go ahead and upgrade that screen while we're at it, since there's really, that's a large distracting feature in the room that we could kind of clean up. So we went with a very nice projection screen that's high gain and ambient light projecting, since you have a significant amount of ambient light coming from the windows around the room. So this will actually improve the appearance of the projector and make it look a lot like a flat panel display.
And if you guys do want to see what this actually looks like, we did do it at the Highlands boardroom.
So, yeah, when we came in to do the request, some people are familiar with the Highlands systems, so we started with that as kind of a baseline. So that takes care of kind of the in-room displays. We were going to go ahead and the small monitor back there, we were going to add a new one just to keep everything, bring it up to speed and current, and then also add a second monitor out in the lobby so that if there's ever people waiting out there, they can see what's going on in here while they're waiting. And when the room's not in use, you might decide to throw up some digital signage or some advertising out there as well. So, that kind of takes care of the in-room displays piece of it. Moving forward from there, obviously, Poly's HDX series are end of life. They've announced end of sale, end of support. So these are aging out, they're SD cameras. So we want to go ahead and, we're going to go ahead and remove those, and we're going to put in the cameras upside down and tight to the ceiling, again, to kind of help with the lower ceiling and keep the sight lines clean. So clean up the appearance of the ceiling in here quite a bit. And so we don't have any problem with the current locations. We thought they're pretty functional, so we were going to stick with those locations unless, through the process, we decide to maybe adjust them a little bit, but still going with the 2-camera system. And then just sucking it up tight to the ceiling. They will be high-def cameras. They will be IP streaming, and the new system will natively support streaming to Facebook, YouTube, recording natively, all on high def, and also web conferencing like Google Meet, Zoom, Teams, which most of you are familiar with now since the pandemic. So those are all good things. To help with the deputy clerk, we'll go ahead and furnish a new touch controller for the cameras that'll allow the kind of similar to what she's doing now with the remote control, just setting up presets for who's talking, which way the camera is facing, and that kind of stuff. And so that's included. And then the rest of this is just digital video distribution. We want to go ahead and support 3 laptop connections here, 1 in the back for the deputy clerk, and then 1/3 location that we can kind of place what we assume would be somewhere in the front here. So, allowing multiple people to be able to present like I am. And also to host a web conference. So that would be done from the back of the room. So,
Is there a possibility to add some kind of wireless microphone to like Cassandra or to Bill or to people that might be presenting? I know that we're set up this way because of COVID. Otherwise, the council would be sitting here and the clerk would be sitting here and the attorney here. But at sometimes we have this situation where we would like, Cassandra to be able to be heard, or Bill, or our attorney.
okay. And the answer is yes. So there was 2 options we presented to you guys. The actually more cost-effective solution, I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead here, to this unit. So Plan B, which was actually about $35,000 less expensive, is the Shure MXC-W system. This is a all-in-one conferencing unit, and these are wireless. So as you can see there, it's got a base station, it's got an integrated speaker so that each member of the meeting can hear. We planned for 10 of them, so they'll have, all the seats up there covered, plus these seats. And they're wireless, so if you needed to, you could spread them out around the room. They do support, like I said, a local speaker so everybody can hear, but they also support basic voting functions. So on that little touch display, you can either do 2-button, yes, no, 3-button, yes, no, abstain, or a 5-button, like a multiple choice type vote. So that's all available right on this wireless unit. The batteries are rechargeable. They last 8 to 10 hours. And that is included, like I said, in the second proposal that we were asked to send. So,
Quick question on that, on the voting part. So would that be adaptable to, let's say, closed captioning on some of these things, to where, like, if we, because of course, through OMA, we have to have a voice vote, but on those, would it be like we push the button and it would come out to those on closed captioning that are streaming, maybe, or just for presentation, basically?
It's actually a little bit more limited than that. It's so that one of these units gets designated as the chairman unit, and the results are displayed for the chairman on his panel. And then you decide if it's secret, or you decide if everybody within the group that has that screen in front of them can see the vote results. So there's a couple of options of how the voting is configured, but it is a closed system. So you would still need to announce the results.
Yeah, because we couldn't,
So-
just through OMA, we got to cover ourselves.
Yeah.
We can't be secret. Yeah.
And most counties are still requiring the hand count, or the verbal. So it's just kind of there. It's not, you don't have to use it. The real feature of these is the fact that they're like a local speaker, microphone. They're automatically mix-minused, and should allow for really good sound quality for all the members. To compare and contrast that with the Now, they also would have these battery packs. They're 8 to 10 hours, and you can have spare battery packs, and they can also charge off a phone charger. So should a meeting run really long, you could plug the units in, or, just gather them up and charge them each time, and then have a couple spare batteries on standby. So the alternative system is a much more sophisticated, like I said, this was about 35 grand more. This does support full vote counting and reporting and presentation to the, to the room, and it's a much more robust voting system. And it also has a full color touchscreen in front of each seat. So this touchscreen can be used for meeting agenda minutes and voting and everything. So that's the big difference between the two systems. This is a wired system, so we would be pulling cabling to every seat. A little bit more disturbance, but that's our problem. And then the units look like that. So obviously a much more robust voting system, and also a presentation for each seat to be able to see their own local screen instead of having to look here or there at the monitors in the room. So
Is there software that like our city clerk could use so she
yes.
would be able to refer back to the voting and all that stuff?
Exactly. So this system from Tayden is, like I said, it's kind of like what the UN uses, right? So this is a very robust system. It's scalable to huge size, and it has a full software package that goes along with it, and a more involved training program. So yes, there's actually some software maintenance that goes along with this, a little bit of recurring cost. It's not huge, but there is some, and it's updated regularly. And then of course the deputy clerk would need to be trained on that use of that software. So that's, like I said, that's the, like at a high level, the big differences between the two systems. They still have a local microphone speaker. This system has a large display. It's hardwired. The other system just has a real basic screen that shows you who's speaking and what the votes are, right? So, like I said, wireless versus wired, and more robust, of course, with the software and the voting capabilities.
So on the higher end system, Highlands has that, or?
The higher end system,
Who would
a
have that?
different model, Curry County has it. They did it in theirs, and then, like you said earlier, Carlsbad, with your type of voting, Carlsbad attachments to their laws that they had to do the hand count or whatever. So they chose to go a wired solution at that time. This has been, what, 4 years?
Yeah. Highlands has a simpler version of the Tayden, which does not have the large screen touch display. So, and it's wired. So it's a wired speaker, microphone, and then basic voting. So this was like just a little bit of a step up from that. Then other highlights of the system, of course, we're going to address the audio in the room. We included, this is a streaming media processor. There's a couple options out there for this, but this is basically a real simple record, mark, stop recording. It's all going to be controlled through the system touch panel on the back. But this is also what supports the streaming to Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you decide. And then, let's see.
While you're looking for that, so if we, I think we're headed towards the positive with COVID, but if we were to go back into that and we had the situation where 3 of us were in here, but we couldn't stream, we had to use the headphones and all that, would this system be able to, where if we sit in here, we're able to stream without using the headphones?
The headphones are used because of a lot of interference.
Okay, so 2 things. Real quick, there were secondary wireless mics included, so if you want to wear a mic, if you have a presenter. So that's a separate piece of that system in both options. We have what's called a digital signal processor in the system that's handling acoustic echo cancellation. So it's a very sophisticated audio processor. It's able to make it so you don't need the headphones. We will be replacing the speakers in the ceiling with higher quality speakers. And we have planned for a ceiling mic array so that we can capture all the audio in the room, including feedback from the gallery. So this digital signal processor does make it possible to host a Zoom call or a Google Meet, have remote participants called in, and just using the microphones that are in front of you in the ceiling, using the ceiling speakers, no headphones required. And then we would, generally, you guys would provide the host computer. So that's one piece that we don't provide in this design. Everything else is turnkey from us. So, standard laptop computer, a host, a call, and then you guys can bring in remote participants if, say, somebody's out, in DC or at the Capitol or whatever, they can still call and join the meeting, or you can have a guest presentation or something like that. So, all possible and included.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Mr. Murphy?
Mr. Mutala?
So, Mr. City Manager, does this have to go through an RFP process, or is there also a state contract that we might look at too, or are there other competitors that are out there that we should look at, or how did we come about
So I think the answer to those questions are all yes. I think that they are on state contract. There are other competitors we might want to consider, and so they're also on state contract. But yes.
Okay. So really, we should be going through an RFP process.
You might want, that's called council.
Anything over, what, $50,000?
We're usually doing over 60.
And if I may, we do fall under the CES contract as well, which is already pre-negotiated contract terms as well, so you get the best price already upfront through that contract. And that's the one we used for you guys already on the pricing, was that one, because we also do have a state contract. We take care of like New Mexico DOT and stuff like that. So CES was your better one, and we did that one for you guys, just so you know, and those are all pre-negotiated ones as well. You're welcome to go to bid in that, but it is also, as part of that contract is for that purpose.
And Mr. Mayor and Council, I think my concerns are that I think $160,000 is a lot of money for a system, but and I'm not saying it's not worth it or not, but I know that technology really, like my phone, you got to upgrade it or get a new one every 6 years, for instance. And this system, I imagine for $160,000, we're probably having to replace it in 16 years. So we're paying, $13,000 a year for the system. So I don't know if that's a good deal or not, but I know we need something new, something better, but I don't know if we want to spend that much money on it. I do go in to see the commissioners meeting in Mora County every so often, and I thought that was poor quality. You can't really see who the commissioners are or who's speaking, and the camera was like really far away, so I didn't like their setup.
I don't think we did that system.
Oh, I thought you mentioned a while ago that.
We did the district court
Yes.
in Mora.
And I did that gymnasium also in Mora.
We did not do the
The
city
district
council.
court is the one that the Mora Commission uses?
I don't know.
Yeah. They have their meetings at the courthouse.
So they're using the distance arraignment system for commission meetings? I was not aware of that.
I don't know.
So,
I think they use the school board. Don't they use the school board meeting,
Yeah.
the boardroom? Mora County?
I think I don't know what they use, but I know,
It's a school board.
I know that if you did the one for Mora County,
We've done,
that's what they use, I don't know.
The-
But I haven't visited the one at Highlands. And,
Yeah.
you know,
So the
I think maybe
system,
we should.
the system at the courtroom is intended for distance arraignment, so it's really just for bringing in like a prisoner remotely. So that's not the intended use, so I don't know if they're using it that way, but that wouldn't have been how we designed that. So.
also, and I did not mention also, you can also visit, we just finished the courthouse here for Las Vegas. It's Fourth Judicial, so that was recently completed. They will kind of almost have that same setup that you guys are having. We had a little bit rougher time with that one because we had to work in between the court sessions that they were having, but that is all now complete. And they will have the same kind of screen as well, kind of your system as well. So, but again, that one's intended more for courtroom usage, but it's about the same. Something similar to you guys, I would go visit Highlands, take a look.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also point out that included in our contract is a 3-year warranty that's unlimited service and support from us, 24/7 call support, and then 2 business day response time on on-site presence. And then I did mention there's assisted listening included for ADA, so people in the gallery or council members can actually have either a telecoil to their hearing assistants or use an earbud so that they can have their own personal feed.
Mr. Moore? Just one question. It was kind of happened, now through COVID, I think the viewing public has really gotten used to the zoom and the close-up. And you go back to where we're at now, and, the clarity, you can barely tell, who's speaking, because like, right now it's showing, probably us three, but you can't, it's not clear enough to where, who's the one talking. So with this new system, would it be able to zoom, where it's clear that the viewing public will see, clear who's talking and not like, well, which one of the three are at that, when we're back to a normal setting, there's 5 of us up here.
So the included camera option, I actually included 2. So the one that's included in your current price is a 20x zoom. And then, of course, the downgrade from that is a 10x zoom, a little bit cheaper.
And is that in settings that would have to?
Well, that would be configured as part of the camera presets. Now, we can actually take that a step further. We can actually do active speaker tracking.
And that's another question I asked Dr. Taylor to see if, as soon as I speak, well, then it would boom, like, so Danielle doesn't have to change it every single time. Like, if I speak, it right away zooms to me, or the mayor, or whoever.
So, the answer is yes. And, for example, we're doing the Jemez Electric Co-op boardroom right now. It's configured that way, but they also have the option to disable it because some people do find it distracting if you're going back and forth a lot and the cameras keep jumping back and forth. So that's kind of a catch-22 there. So we do tune it up to where, there's some, we'll call it time constant, not get too sophisticated, but where there's a little bit of delay so that the cameras aren't constantly going back and forth. But yes, with either system, we can track the microphone in use and trigger the camera preset automatically so that the deputy clerk doesn't have to do it. Or you can do a manual override scenario. So both options are part of the system.
And I just want to kind of, I know, the price tag, does look big, but I mean, in technology, we could either pay cheap and replace it in a few years or pay expensive. I mean, just like any laptop, you can go to Walmart and buy a laptop for $299. That laptop's only going to hold you for a few years versus you buy one for $1,000. I mean, in the long run, it kind of balances out. So, if we're going to do it, we do it right. And I think we have, some funding, that I think we can. But at the end of the day, it's, spending the tax dollar wisely and making sure that.
So for the sake of time, do all other questions go to Kenny and then they can share them with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. We appreciate your presentation this evening, and we will be moving forward. You'll be hearing from us one way.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. Next order of business,
Mr. Mayor, I believe that item number 1, they're requesting approval on this.
no.
That's what the agenda says.
Was it for approval, or was it just for a presentation?
Presentation.
It was presentation and request for approval of one of the options if you wish to.
Oh, okay, we're not ready at this time to make that
It
decision.
was just out there, so in case you did want to make a decision.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item number 2 is Charter Commission update on the municipal charter review.
Okay,
Direction from the governing body to the Charter Commission members.
thank
We
you.
have Councilman Wright. Mrs. Wright.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As we're all aware, Mayor and Council needed to review the charter every 10 years, and it's up for reviewing. And our charter indicates that Mayor and Council can appoint a commission to review and amend the city charter and put it before the voters at the next election. And the Charter Commission has been established by members appointed by the mayor and appointed by each councilman and woman. And so far, they've had quite a few meetings. And I've listened into a few of them, and I think they're doing a good job. I think they're going through it pretty thoroughly, which I think there's a lot of issues that are at hand with the charter, and This charter really became about when they consolidated the city of Las Vegas back in 1968. So really, there's a lot of things that have changed and a lot of things that change daily, runoff elections as well as issues about appointees and declarations and so forth that need to be addressed. I'm more concerned about basically the direction that the charter is going, commission. And I heard him over the radio, and our direction should be pretty clear. You know, we expect you to get public input as much as possible, and I'm sure that there'll be a time and a place for that. I would also, and I have requested that mayor and council give their presentation to the commission at some point with their concerns, because I don't want the commission going right field and council going, mayor and council going the left field. And at the end, really the determination of what changes are made are going to be up to mayor and council. And we want to be on the same page. I mean, the commission is really not out there to gain support or gain support from the community as much as reviewing and amending the charter, making amendments to it. And that doesn't mean come back over here with a brand-new charter or a brand-new form of government. This is basically for amendment purposes. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're all working towards the same goal. And that's how come I wanted to hear a presentation from the commission, from the Charter Commission. Thank you, Chairman.
I'd like to welcome Francisco Apodaca and Greg Salazar. Thank you for serving on the commission. And I'll give you some time to do presentation. And at some point, just keep in mind, just for time's sake, for this evening, at some point, we'll have a joint meeting of the commission and the council tonight, just to update us and give us a presentation as to where you are at this point.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, City Clerk, City Manager. We've been diligently meeting. We got off to a rocky start and got started a little late. We were before you once before, where we told you we were going to review the charter. That is our mission as stated within the charter. One of the things that we need to do is, one, it has to be an issue of transparency because we're a citizens-appointed commission. And the charter belongs to the citizens of the city. So we all do effort and through all of our efforts to date have tried to be as transparent in this virtual world. We had our first live meeting last week, and where was a lively discussion, and we've been proceeding through the charter as quickly as possible because of the time limitation that was imposed. We have to have a finished product to you hopefully by September 1st. So we have been meeting, and we've had a couple, one special meeting and the regular meetings, but we plan, and just to kind of set you at ease, Councilor Montoya, we plan to have 2 special meetings this month, and one of the reasons that we wanted this meeting tonight is to kind of give you a calendar of when we'd like your input. We have reviewed, we have talked about perhaps even adopting some possible changes to the charter or recommendations, but we have held them. We've tabled them until we hear from council and mayor. We would like to propose to you tonight to have a meeting, a special meeting on the afternoon of June 22nd for council. Because of the open meetings requirements, it's difficult for you to meet as a body and even as a dual body, a joint meeting, because of the Open Meetings Act restrictions, we would have 2 quorums. So that's kind of a difficult thing to do, because as a commission, we have to abide by the Open Meetings Act resolution also. So we thought, in order, before we acted on any recommendations or anything that would become a recommendation, to listen to council individually on the 22nd, we'd like to invite the council in half-hour sessions. Our meetings are set for 2 hours. We'd like each individual council to come, council person to come before us, and we'll schedule you to come before us in a half an hour to give us your recommendations, your thoughts, and discuss with the commission what you perceive as needing change. We'd like to propose a second meeting on June 29th with mayor and city clerk, because the city clerk is affected as a single most person to have to deal with the charter on a day-to-day basis. But we need your input. Before we make any recommendations, before we have any votes or actions, we want to hear from you to make sure that, as you say, we're all in agreement. This has to go before the voters, as you say, before this body first for adoption, and then before the voters. So it's not a package that belongs to us, it's a package, we view it as a vote by the voters. And we have been soliciting, we've been on the radio to let people know what we're doing, to start transparency. We want to be as transparent in this process as we can. We all know, as you've indicated, that there are some problems with the charter. And I think that we've looked back and we have the good fortune to have a former mayor. We have, and get things from that perspective, as the charter was prior to the charter was revised and the home rule adopted in 2010. One of the big problems we see is there has not been a charter commission that was impaneled as called for within the charter every 5 years. So yours is the first administration that's abiding by the charter. So I salute you. But at the same time, that means that as a living document, the charter should be revised from time to time as things change. Population changes, everything changes, that should be a living document that changes to meet the needs of the community. It hasn't. So one thing I have to say for all of you and the mayor is thank you for paneling this button. It's necessary. One of the other things is we're running into a problem within the Charter Commission is that we do not have a budget established. And we're running into some legal questions that we do not, as a commission, feel are would be appropriately addressed by in-house counsel, simply because there could be a perceived conflict of interest, because he serves at the pleasure of the mayor and the council. If we want to do something that's contrary to that, would we get an unbiased legal opinion? So we went out on our own and called the Municipal League and said, what do you suggest? And through the Municipal League, we've been able to identify 2 attorneys in the state that are qualified in municipal and home rule law. They'll both be available. And we're not talking about a full-time counsel. We're talking a counsel we could go to ask questions.
Can I
Yes.
just, would there be a conflict of interest if we went in-house? What is the perceived conflict? Is it just a perception,
If
or?
there were changes made to the city attorney portion of the charter, just dealing with, maybe it's about a paragraph long, other than changing my particular role, function in the government, I don't know beyond that what type of a conflict there would be.
Yeah,
Well, only, if I may, only because he works for the mayor and council. That is a transparency issue. In order to be totally transparent, we say have some independent authority who is well-versed in municipal law and especially home rule law.
and so what are you
give
looking
us-
at as far as cost?
We don't know. We've got to go out and look at
And
that.
the other thing is, as we all know, once you give it to an attorney, you're extending, sorry, Scott, you're extending this for another 3 years by the time they get you an opinion. So that is something, and the reason why we have you on a timeline is so that we can make a determination if we're going to consolidate our elections at a certain time with the city and the school and the state and the county. So that's the reason for the timeline that we have. We have to make a decision prior to a certain time so that the city clerk and the county clerk can work on unifying the elections. That was the only reason why. I'd be reluctant to sending them a huge document as opposed to a portion of maybe the charter that they could look at without this taking another 6, 7 months. That's my honest opinion.
Well, it's our opinion that we're not going to change, make major changes, but they might be significant even if they're small. And that's why we have to be careful about the wording, the legality, whether there's a conflict with state law, whether there's a conflict within the current, what's the difference in the current charter? Is there a home rule provision that we're going to non-compliance with? We don't have the expertise within the commission to be able to render that, and we don't feel that the in-house, with no disrespect intended, that the in-house attorney could be a non-biased opinion. We're not talking about months. We have a date to do this by. And if we're going to throw in public hearings, that even kind of condenses our time limit. I mean, we're under the gun to finish this, and this is something that hasn't been done in 10 years in a very short period of time.
Have you asked for a legal budget?
No, that's what we're asking for now.
So could you meet with our attorney and discuss that?
Sure.
Okay.
I have no problem.
Thank you.
The other thing we'd like to ask is for the appointment of our 7th member. We still have not had that come before us. We're lacking one member since one member declined to sit in.
Who declined?
Mr. Salas, because they thought there might be a conflict with
We'll have an
his
appointment for
position.
the next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, if we could have that. Mr. Salazar?
Well, I'd like to say that we're, to answer Councilman Montoya's statement, we're not here to look at redoing the entire charter. I think the consensus of the commission is to
Update.
yeah, find little faults that we have that we know, and we can focus on those, and that would be probably it. Not anything grandiose, just fix some little loops that we've seen, and that's basically what we have all thought.
That's good. It's good to hear. Mr. Romero?
First off, thank you guys for, the transparency that you guys have, been offering to the community and trying to get as much input as you can. I just, and I know Councilor Montoya and I might kind of disagree on this one is, as far as meeting individually, and I say meeting as a group, I've been involved in a dual board meeting to where all it takes is one advertisement. You have basically on the agenda would say city council roll call, and then you guys would have your roll call, and then at the end, and then after all that's all said and done, then one person, which would probably be the mayor, kind of doing it, and if you guys have a vote, then you guys would vote on what you have to do on those. We still have those items on changes that could all be done. So, and the reason why I say that is I know the thing is it puts you guys, I feel, puts you guys in a predicament is there's 4 of us or 5 of us. Well, if we're stuck even here as a council and, Councilor Rodriguez and I might agree on one thing and they disagree on anything, well, you guys move forward and you're like, well, what do we do because the council kind of disagrees on this one item? So it might be easier to where, if we're as a group, well, I might hear their side and I say, well, you know what, Councilor Montoya's right, whereas individually, I wouldn't be able to hear Councilor, his concerns or, to where we have those discussions before as a group versus if we do individually, if that makes sense.
There's not a conflict of interest with Opens Meeting Act.
No.
Because you guys are simply advisory. You're not making decisions, so we could just have one quorum and one meeting, right?
Well, they are listed in the charter, and so they would be subject to the Open Meetings Act, but I don't, I'll double check and see, but I don't believe right off the top of my head there would be any type of a...
Just in the advertisement that you do it, it can be
Well,
done.
you can advertise it, but I'm just saying that if both groups want to meet in their full capacity, it's just like if you want to have a meeting with the county commissioners. I mean, the council could meet with the county commissioners, and you just have to make sure you're giving full notice under OMA.
And I fully appreciate that. What I'd like to suggest is, again, I still would like to, and the commission would still like to meet with you individually to get your unbiased and unfettered opinions. What do you think should happen? That'll help us formulate the recommendations for any changes to come before you as a board. We would present them, and it's up to you to accept them or not.
Right.
I think if you put us in there and say, we don't like this, change it, that puts pressure on us in an undue fashion that might not let us have an unfettered look at the charter. And that's simply what we're trying to do, is give you an unbiased look at what recommendations we would have, and then we bring them to you, we present them to you, you accept them or not. That's our job. And we go from there.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, I like the idea of meeting individually with each counselor person, because there's certain things that I would like to see, changed in the charter. Doesn't necessarily mean that the other 3 councilmen will approve it or not, but once you bring those changes forward, then in public, we get to argue and discuss and then vote on it. And that's comes, I think, so I appreciate that. Other than, it seems like if we're doing it with just the commission and the council people, it's somewhat limited in regards to public in that regard. So I like the idea of going in there individually and say, okay, these are my concerns. And I think a lot of them probably will be similar,
Yeah.
because we've talked about
I
this.
think we're all on the same,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see too many.
From my discussions with individual counselors, from my discussions that we've had, we're all on the same page. We don't differ in thought from what needs to happen. The citizens, from our talks with them, from the comments we got after we appeared on the radio, were similar. I mean, we're not very far off. The commission is very united. It's the commission is, I have to say, one of the best commissions I've ever worked with, because they're all have their opinions, and we listen to them all, and they're all considered. And none of them, nobody's steering anybody in a direction. It is a group effort, and we do lively discussions.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, and if that's the process you've taken, then, and you've set those meetings up, then we'll do what your commission wants to do. So say the dates of those meetings again?
June 22nd.
And does that only council and not me?
Only council. You meet on the 29th with the city clerk, so you have individual, you'll have a little bit more time. We're going to give you some more time. So we want to do that so that we get your unfettered thoughts.
All right, can we work with getting those scheduled for that meeting? All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Montoya?
Okay, you'll notify us. I do like to recommend and support that we do find the fundings for them to have legal assistance. And the other thing is, keep in mind that when you guys come up with a resolution as to, let's say you're stuck in an item, on the referendum, you can always put option A and option B and let the voters decide. If you get stuck on an issue that's pretty strong on both sides, or, maybe you guys are meeting in half, maybe you can put it on the referendum as vote yes on this one, or vote no, or vote yes on this one, whichever one, and let the public or citizens vote on that item, for instance. So
with all due respect,
it don't have to be like all yes or all no.
With all due respect, that would be up to you.
Yes.
We're going to present it to you.
Yeah.
You take them to the voters. So that's beyond our scope. Our scope would just be to present the recommendations to you. If you accept them, you take them to the voters.
I'll entertain
then you could.
one more comment and we'll move on.
Okay,
Mr.
just
Moore?
one last thing, and I don't even think, a professional service contract we probably already have with the the municipal league attorney, wouldn't we, I mean,
Randy Van Vleck won't be the municipal legal attorney when this happens, if he's the one that's chosen. I know they mentioned that there's potentially two. And that will have to be a professional services agreement, and it will have to be with the city. I mean, we can't,
Yeah.
the attorney's client isn't the committee, it'll be the city. So that whatever product that the attorney comes up with, be shared with everybody else.
You'll help them with that.
and at that point, it wouldn't be like I mean, it would only be as needed kind of with any outsourced attorney,
Yeah,
right?
you guys just set an amount of what you want to spend, and you say this is what he's got to work with, and then he can do his work based on, or you just leave it open-ended and say, get him to do his work, send us the bill. It's up to you guys, however you want to limit it.
But you'll help with that, with the guidance for the
If
legal.
it's your direction, I will.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We have a long agenda. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, conduct a public hearing for business items 3 and 4. And I did receive a public hearing input for item number 3, and I will read it at that time.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter a public hearing for business items 3 and 4.
There's a motion on the floor to enter a public hearing, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Lee Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thank you. Mr. Hendrickson, please.
And we can be sworn in, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
You better do it, because him and I are
Yes,
more
and then
most likely.
we'll have to swear me in because I'm reading. So if you raise your right hand and repeat after me, I state your name for the record.
Scott William Henderson.
Swear to tell the truth
Swear to tell the truth
during my testimony to council tonight.
during my testimony to council tonight.
And you'll swear me in if I can read the
Want to do it now? Okay. I affirm under penalty of perjury
I affirm under the penalty of perjury
that my testimony before the council
that my testimony before council
will be the truth,
will be the truth,
the whole truth, and
the whole
nothing but the
truth, and
truth.
nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God. Mr. Mayor, if I can go ahead and read that public input first.
You go ahead.
This is from Lee Einer. The hard truth about our society is that government doesn't always do what it is tasked with doing, and government and its officials and employees will sometimes openly refuse to do that which by law is their job. Then what next? It is in fact so common that we have developed legal tools simply to compel government and its actors to do what they must do but refuse to. Writs of mandamus are a good example, as are PTAM suits. I am a 2-time PTAM relator against Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Now, you would think that when it's the government being ripped off, government would be quick to act, but I worked for 20 years in medical reimbursement, and I learned that hard way, that a PTAM, which is basically a private citizen suing in the government's name, was often the only way to compel government action against a fraudulent scheme, even when damages numbered in the millions of dollars. I had to learn how to force government to do what it did not want to do. My partner lives adjacent to a home that burned roughly 5 years ago. The burnt-out home next door to her is a mess. The roof is mostly gone. It's a haven for pigeons. The furniture that was dragged out of the home during the fire is still right where they dragged it, in a pile rotting in the elements and providing cover for rodents, skunks, and who knows what. Other refuge littering the yard is now catching rainwater and breeding mosquitoes. The brick chimneys are slow falling apart and dropping to the ground. Pieces of the corrugated steel roof occasionally come off in the wind and are a hazard during their descent. And this has been going on for 5 years. Last week, my partner and I tried to utilize the provision of 301-11 to file a verified complaint in the city's name at the Las Vegas Municipal Court. The clerks refused to accept the complaint and also refused to give any sort of written denial of the complaint, effectively circumventing the ordinance and cheating us out of due process. I presented them with a copy of the ordinance, it made no difference. Once again, the government refusing to do that which by law they must do. The court clerk's duty here is ministerial. They don't get to pick and choose which filings they accept. But if they do refuse, then what next? And your city attorney says they never see a complaint at municipal court. Yeah, I can see why. Others who have sought to exercise this right at municipal court likely got similar treatment. I filed a complaint with the Judicial Standards Commission. This property I'm talking about was red tagged twice in 2020. Legal action was threatened by the city, but that threat was made several months ago and another case of government refusing to do its job. City residents need to be able to compel the city to do its job when it doesn't want to do its job. And we can see the pushback against that. Bill Hendrickson doesn't want to have that power, Scott Aaron doesn't want to have that power, and they are so adamant about Las Vegas residents not having that power, that this is the third time they've come before you to try to take that power away from us. Why? Particularly if they claim nobody needs use of it. Could I take this matter to district court and file a pre-tam complaint there? I could. I have already spoken with the AG's office about this and was told that I would need legal representation. I am on a fixed income. I am not likely going to be hiring a lawyer to force the city to do what it should already do. Forcing people to hire an attorney or walk away basically makes justice a privilege of the wealthy. Now, I know you have heard scaremongering about what if somebody files a complaint in the city's name and the complaint is frivolous or for some other reason there is legitimate reason for it not to go forward. Tell you what, the judge can dismiss it. The city attorney can request dismissal. They don't even need much of a reason to do so. 301-11 is not much as far as criminals go. It actually is pretty weak. But it can be done pro se, and it's what most of us in the community can afford. And this is in part what municipal court is, for providing a venue for minor complaints with simple resolutions that don't require lawyering up. So I guess this is an odd request, but I need you to stand with me and protect my rights to make you do what you want to do. Can you do that? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Hendrickson, briefly, please explain why we're here.
Council, Mr. Mayor, tonight we're asking council to adopt ordinance 2104 to amend the code of the City of Las Vegas, section 200-40 and section 301-11.
Thank you. Scott, did you have anything to add?
This was just coming before you because at the last time the council met, there was a typographical error, and at the request of Mr. Montoya, he requested that we make that correction and return back to the council for approval. So that's what we've done.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council? Go ahead. Dr. Rodriguez.
Cassandra, the individual who wrote their concern, I was a little confused. Were they in support or in opposition of us passing? Due to the section E, I assume, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, if we can go through item 4 as well and then close the public hearing.
Very well.
And vote on each one.
Number 4?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before we move on, the property that they're indicating that's been red tagged twice in 2020, what's the status on that?
We have given notice to the owners of the property that a lien, I don't remember the exact amount, has accumulated, and we will, where are we on the court side of it, or we're just waiting for them to?
Can you point of
Yeah, we're not going to disclose any public information about that particular matter.
Thank you.
There's personal information there, so we're not disclosing.
But we're acting on it.
Oh, we are, we've been acting on it.
Thank you.
I have another
Thank you.
question. Yes. Can you address the citizens' concern?
I can, and I'll try to do it briefly. I know I've done it a couple of times, each time this has come before the council, but each time I bring it before the council, there's more information that refutes the resident's position. His basic position is that he can represent his girlfriend as a non-attorney in municipal court. That couldn't be more false. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to get rid of this provision, because the state has changed its rules, and I gave copies to council regarding pro se appearance in municipal court, and I highlighted the portions that are applicable here. The rules of municipal court are very clear. Non-attorneys may not represent individuals unless it's in the capacity of a corporation, an LLC, or a general partnership. That doesn't apply here. This is a guy that wants to represent his girlfriend, and he wants to file a criminal-based complaint. It's quasi-criminal and it's quasi-civil, but he wants to file a complaint in the name of the city against his neighbor. Now, if you will look at the rule that starts 8-111,
The rule used to be that in municipal courts, there was some limited ability for pro se people to go in there and represent themselves or represent others, like their girlfriends. But what I've highlighted here says, prior to December 31st, 2008, this rule authorized private citizens to pursue criminal prosecutions in municipal court, either on their own or through a special prosecutor. In 2013, the court withdrew the paragraphs that allowed for that, okay, which removed the authority for private prosecutions. This is what this ordinance tries to do. It allows a resident to file a complaint, criminal complaint for abatement against his neighbor in the name of the city, and one neighbor can prosecute the other neighbor in the name of the city, okay? And that's not permitted now. It hasn't been permitted since 2008. And in 2012, the New Mexico Supreme Court issued an opinion that stated very clearly that the practice of law in any court is limited to duly licensed attorneys who are members of the state bar or otherwise authorized by this court's rules in specific limited circumstances. So to address that concern, there is not the ability for non-attorneys to represent other people in any capacity, except some very narrow exceptions. It doesn't fall under representing your girlfriend under this ordinance. So that's why this ordinance is not good, because it doesn't conform with the rules as they now exist in state law.
So you're basically trying to clean up our ordinance so it conforms with what state law is
Exactly.
requiring.
While preserving their ability to file it in state district court. They can file the exact same complaint in district court and pursue it there.
But you cannot file a criminal complaint in municipal. It has to be, right?
Against your neighbor, yeah. One neighbor can't file a criminal complaint against his other neighbor in municipal court.
Very well.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Matei?
Mr. City Attorney, so then, when they do file in district court, they're responsible for all fees attached to that. But isn't there some kind of like indigent fund that allows people to access when they can't afford an attorney or they can't afford to pay on their own?
There are programs set up, and I don't know whether they specifically would apply to this situation, but the court does, the district courts have discretion in terms of awarding costs and fees to some degree, waiving certain things in certain situations. I don't know whether that would apply to this particular state statute or not, because I haven't tried it, but, and I'm not, I don't have that information in front of me to give you that answer.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, just real
Mr.
quick.
Romero?
And maybe I got it wrong, but I think that, wasn't it the wife that filed the complaint, or was it, I mean, not wife, the girlfriend? It was in her name, not...
Well, the public comment said, last week, my partner and I tried to utilize the provisions of 301-11. So it sounds like he's trying to represent his girlfriend. And he keeps saying we and I.
Point of order, Mr. Attorney, we should not be discussing this at this juncture. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the clerk wanted us to go to item 4 right away.
That was item 4.
We haven't moved to item 4.
This is item 3.
Oh, okay. Then item 4.
Yes.
Sorry.
Council and Mr. Mayor, item number 4 is for the adoption of ordinance number 2112, amending the code of City of Las Vegas, section 389-6, entitled exemptions. This change to that ordinance removes paragraph G, which originally allowed taxing lodger's tax on short-term rentals of 3 bedrooms or more, and this removes that exemption, meaning that 1 bedroom or more will now be taxable.
Very well. Any public input? Cassandra?
No, not on this.
Not on this one? Okay, what's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to go into regular session.
There's a motion on the floor to go back into regular session by Mr. Romero. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Iván Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. I'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 21/04.
A motion.
There's a motion by Dr. Rodriguez, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call us, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Junior?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Rodriguez, a second by Counselor Olivari Junior. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to adoption of ordinance number 21-12.
I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Montoya for adoption of ordinance 21/12.
Second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call us, please.
Counselor Olivari Junior?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Bill.
Next item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is item number 5, request approval to publish ordinance 21-13, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Las Vegas by adding a new chapter 22 entitled Finance and Budget Code Ordinance. We have our city attorney, Scott here.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This provision basically, what it does is it continues the city's adoption of the New Mexico Procurement Code, but it lays out some specific changes we're allowed to make as a home rule municipality. One of them being to provide a local preference. And so that's what I've done. I've worked with our point person when it comes to procurement here at the city to make sure that this would work. This is virtually identical to what Santa Fe has for their local preference provision in their procurement code. And I know that this was in part because of some things on the horizon regarding some of the local agricultural things that we want to do. So I'll leave it at that. And
Thank you, Scott. Any questions, discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you've done, I assume, major research on this, and it's not, doesn't go against anything in regards to state procurement?
it doesn't.
We're not in violation?
We're not in violation of state procurement. We're allowed to make some small changes to state procurement code, and that's basically what we've done to add a local option, which would give local vendors a little bit of a boost in that competitive process.
Okay.
Mr. Romero?
And Scott, and I don't know, did Jesus, or who's the chief procurement officer for the city?
Who I worked with on this was Helen.
Helen. Okay, because just, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that we couldn't give like a percentage. I thought like on a bidding process, we could give points, like a grading system, you know, when we do RFPs, that there's a point system that we could give local like points advantage to local business, but not a percentage.
Also, this does give a percentage increase in the number of points. It doesn't give, it's not on the dollar amount.
Oh, it's on the points.
Yes.
What's the pleasure of the council?
So I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve publication ordinance number 2113.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Montoya, a second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Junior?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari Junior. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, request approval to publish ordinance 21-14, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Las Vegas by repealing the existing Article 8, operation of bicycles, and replacing it with a new Article 8 entitled Operation of Bicycles and Clay Vehicles. We have our city attorney, Scott Aaron.
Mayor, I'd like to move to take a 5-minute break so I can attend the restroom. I don't miss any of the discussion.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. 5 minutes are allowed. 7:15 will convene.
I don't need a vote.
Next order of business, Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, on item number 6,
Okay.
and request approval to publish ordinance 21-14, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Las Vegas by repealing the existing Article 8, operation of bicycles, and replacing it with a new Article 8 entitled Operation of Bicycles and Heavy Vehicles. We have our city attorney, Scott Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
Mr. Mayor, would Kate be able to sit there and present as well, or?
At this point, it would be in a discussion role, but yes, during the discussion. Right now, they're just introducing the issue.
So council, you guys got an updated, I guess the most recent version of this ordinance 2114. It's obviously been a work in progress. The highlighted sections that you have are the most recent additions. And I also provided to you guys in a hard copy so you have it. Obviously, you guys know this is kind of a contentious issue, so I guess rather than me making any statements about it one way or another, I guess I'm kind of here to try to answer questions and see where we go from here with it.
So I understand that there was a issue with public property, parking on public property. So
Yes, there was a couple, and it sounds to me, and maybe Kate from Bird could make their case a little better about how their business model operates. I'm not terribly familiar with the specifics, other than just to say that when somebody decides to ride one of these scooters, obviously, whatever their destination is, when they're done riding, and so they need somewhere to drop off the scooter. And it would be virtually impossible, just from a common sense perspective, for Bird to somehow contract with all the private landowners in town so they could drop it off on private property. So I think that what their position is, and what I heard her say earlier tonight, what I took from that was that being able to leave the bike, park the bike when you're done with your ride on public property is part of the model, part of the business model.
on the sidewalk,
On a sidewalk, something like
in
that.
front of a store.
In front of a store, or, maybe it's the sidewalk in front of my house. I don't know. It just sounds like to me I don't know, maybe it's this sidewalk in front of my dorm. It depends on who I am and what I'm doing. And I know there were some current concerns from the council, which I incorporated into this, regarding the use of public property. Obviously, the city's not allowed to give away use of public property for free, but there's fees built into this, as you guys will see on the last page. They're not the fees that you're going to find in places like Albuquerque and some of these larger cities. They're pretty modest, but because we've got some compensation to the city, there's not a violation of the anti-donation clause, because they're paying money to the city in exchange for being able to leave the scooters on public property. So if the anti-donation clause is a concern to you, that can be avoided. I'll leave it at that.
Scott, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Burnett.
Mr. Romero, Rodriguez, Montoya.
Scott, real quick, just for the record, this thing wasn't created out of nowhere. We all shared ordinances with you. I know I shared some. I think Councilor Rodriguez and all of us have given input. So it wasn't just created out of nothing. We did have a base to, the language that's used in these has been used in other ordinances. Am I correct?
It has, and in addition to that, we narrowly tailored portions of it to really fit what this is going to look like in Las Vegas. So you're right, this is a patchwork.
Mr. Rodriguez?
In reading 12-8-11, the parking, it does seem very restrictive. And in talking to a couple of the residents about it, it seems very restrictive, and their concern is that we're not being so restrictive that it stops the business from coming into our community. Now, I don't know anything about the scooter. I have a scooter that goes up to 39 miles per hour, so I ride it in the road. I assume these scooters have a kickstand, is right. So if I rent it at Mr. Trujillo, right, place of business, just to go to Walgreens, like if I'm a student and I want to go to Walgreens, then I guess there is some social responsibility on the individual, right? So I'm not going to like park it in the doorway, I would assume. You know, they're going to put the kickstand up, put it on the side of the walk so it doesn't impede pedestrians. I think with this, we're assuming that they're going to put the scooter in front of the doorway, that it impedes pedestrians, and I can't assume that. I'm assuming that people have some social responsibility and would park it kind of by the side in that regard. The other issue that I had with this is it seems like it's targeting certain businesses. I think if we have a parking restrictions, which you had already, we mentioned in some of the previous, and I can find it because I read through it pretty thoroughly. We're like restricting, if I want to go and have a hamburger at the Skillet, you know, why should I have special restrictions to park my scooter? Why can't I just park it like I would park it at Walgreens? Even Walgreens is special restrictions, so it seems like we're kind of violating some of those businesses, you know, or stopping people from being able to go to those businesses just because they sell liquor, which we're, again, making an assumption that everybody's going to go there just to drink the liquor, right, and not eat a dinner. So I think for me, I would ask that we redo the parking so it's not so restrictive. That would be my suggestion. And I was very concerned about this. You know, I asked a lot of questions. I spoke to a lot of my students in the different classes, and they felt that they could utilize something like this. It'd be very beneficial for them because they don't have vehicles. You know, they have a hard time, and a lot of them don't like to walk, so they have to find a ride. And this seemed like practical for them. And I don't want to write an ordinance that we're kind of assuming the worst about human nature and people in general. And for me, the parking was very restrictive, so I'd like to see that changed or eliminated. Because I don't think you could get permission. And then in front of my house, I have a gate and a sidewalk. If they want to park it, lean it against my fence, I wouldn't have any problem with that. I wouldn't think that would be an issue.
The one thing that we would need to remember is that the sidewalks in the residential areas are the obligation and responsibility of the homeowner.
Yeah.
So parking it, if I was going to park it in front of your house, I would technically need your permission to do that. In the business districts, that's not the case. So you've got a little more leeway in terms of parking in front of a business, but I think that was the...
But I think that's a problematic ordinance, and I would like to bring and change that, because we're nowhere in any other community that I lived in is the responsibility laid on the resident to repair their sidewalks. That's usually a city, and we set aside money for that. I think that's very problematic, but that's for another day.
Mr. Mayor?
Questions, Mr. Olivari?
I do have a question on the parking. You know, it says 50 yards away from the establishment. What if you're a handicap and you're driving a bike and go and park in a handicap area? You know, I don't think that's going to cause any problems that you park in the handicap area as long as you have your little stick on it. You know. But 50 feet away from the establishment is kind of, I don't agree with that. Maybe we could change that a little bit.
I'm happy to relook at any portions that the council wants to relook at.
Mr. Mayor? In that item, and I think there's might be a little bit of confusion here, and that item on the 50, on the liquor establishment came from basically setting up a pickup location at a liquor establishment based off of, I mean, to me, I mean, it's up to you guys, but I would hate for one business, whether it's Dick's or whether it's Skillet, and I've had this conversation with the owner, I would hate for somebody to, I mean, we all know that they get in their vehicle, you know, and they go and they cause, you know, drink and drive, cause an accident. Well, they can literally come back and sue that establishment. So my protection with this is if we put those scooters parked at those liquor establishments, is that if somebody takes the scooter, I mean, they're going on their own and that's it, but actually parking that scooter there and having a pickup location, we know what's gonna happen. I mean, the liquor establishment isn't going to monitor who's getting, you know, whether you're drunk or you're not drunk. So that was kind of my request in looking at other ordinances for that specific language, and it's not any business, it's just the liquor establishment business. I mean, if somebody goes, you know, they pick it up whether, you know, they're at Love Music or whatever, and they go over there and they park it, and I mean, that's them where they did it, but an actual pickup zone, because to me, it becomes a danger, and I mean, it's up to you guys, but I'd hate to lose one of our businesses over an accident that, you know, wasn't monitored.
So that would apply to like a Walgreens, right? Because it's a liquor establishment.
Or Dick's, or the Skillet, or the Plaza, or Castaneda.
We have a lot of liquor establishments.
It's up to
Or are you
guys.
solely targeting just solely liquor establishments? Does that make sense?
That was the intent, but I mean,
Because that would be like a business that just solely sells liquor.
And when, Mr. Romero, when you talk about parking, are you talking about making it a pickup place?
location.
Okay, not necessarily me going from the plaza to Dick's and leaving it there,
And you taking it, yes.
or just parking it there and leaving it.
Yeah, I'm just saying a pickup location.
So not
Pickup
having a
zone.
pickup location at a liquor establishment.
Yes, that was the intent. Yes.
But isn't a pickup location anywhere I park the scooter and you pick it up?
That's pickup after use. I'm talking about like if, you know, having like 15 of them parked in
Oh,
front of
in a row,
Dick's.
okay, versus one,
Or, you know, for that to be a pickup place,
okay.
for your use. I'm going to Dick's to go use their scooters, in other words. Not just a pickup, I didn't mean pickup like, you know, you park it there and they come pick it up.
Right.
I meant like
See, and then there's a lot of other things, and I mean, again,
Yeah.
you know, this isn't created, I mean, in this language, you'll also see the city of Las Vegas is only in control of roads maintained by the city of Las Vegas. I spoke with, matter of fact, it was one of the highway commissioners that spoke to me about this whole thing, and Ruidoso and Red River, those places had to get permission from DOT because their communities are, their main roads are basically operated through DOT.
Okay.
So even with us, they said, hey, well, you know, we have Grand Avenue, we have parts of 7th Street.
Parts of
Those are
7th,
regulated
right.
through DOT. So even if we were to get permission, and I'm not sure if you were, I think I spoke to you, Elias, on this, is that you guys are gonna have to get permission through DOT, you know, for crossing Grand and stuff like that. And if I'm not sure if you're aware, but I mean, that's a process that you guys are also gonna have to go through. Just because we're approving it on city streets, there's also streets within the city that you guys are gonna have to
And that
get
would
approval to.
hold for 7th Street also.
Well, there's part of 7th Street that we maintain.
Yeah.
But,
Just to clarify, that I don't think it's a problem as far as not parking them, like deploying, that's the word we'd use. If I go and deploy the scooters at Dick's or at Skillet and leave them there for people to ride them, yeah, that's not a problem not doing that. But if people are riding them to the Skillet
Yeah,
from
that's-
somewhere
I mean,
else, that's not.
We can create specific pinpoint locations that we know where we pick them up and redeploy them and put them for use. But then it's up to the user where they drive them and drop them for reuse. So we can target places that we agree upon.
And I think it's really the wording has to be. Because we're not wanting to restrict you from bringing in this business. And I know there's a lot of comments by the residents on Facebook, and that's not our concern is safety. That was really my concern, is safety, but we don't want to be so restrictive either that it doesn't allow for Mr. Trujillo to open this business, because I think it would be utilized by students at Highlands once they return.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I
Mr.
think I got
Mator?
bypassed. Was 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's no question about it that we do need some kind of transportation other than the city of Las Vegas transportation that shuts down at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. We don't have a taxi, we don't have this and the other. My concerns, again, were the same thing, New Mexico 518, the interstate, 7th Street, Mills, Grand, those state roads, they would have to go through the DOT to find out exactly what they need to do on those. And my concern was basically safety of the traveling public, and that includes anybody driving down the road or walking down the street, whether you're on foot or bicycles or skateboard or whatever. But our ordinance didn't recognize any of this, and thank you, Scott, for bringing it up to date and to par. And I know that I put in my input, and I don't know, who else did you get input from besides mayor and council?
City manager, multiple people forwarded me ordinances from cities all over the country. I probably looked at 15 different.
But from the public or organizations or anything like that, businesses?
There were some, but it wasn't, it was mostly from inside the
Okay.
city.
So really, at least now we have something, and it's not like they're talking out on the street that we're dragging our feet on this. It's just that we want a good ordinance that addresses every issue at hand, and it's a safety ordinance for our public and our visitors. I know the business district is pretty much, I would believe, that are the ones that are going to use it the most. But either way, my concerns, and still I have concerns, and I don't mind using the right-hand side of the traveling lane, because we don't have no bicycle lanes in Las Vegas. So I don't mind them using that area, as long as they're not like in the middle of the street and so forth, which it's addressed in the ordinance. And also, as far as parking, I don't see why they can't park in front of the business, out on the street, just like a regular car, or like anywhere in town. Now, I do, and maybe this is negotiable, but I do have issues with them being parked in front of the businesses' doors, for instance, in front of the sidewalk and so forth, or in places where our accessibility to handicap is limited. And there's a few areas in town that does happen. So, but again, this is a reasoning that I will push and will ask our city manager to include on this next year's fiscal budget. So much money to be allocated for every ward to do sidewalks in compliance with ADA. Because, this right now is, to me, it's still a liability in a sense of the condition of our sidewalks. I mean, and they're not up to par, and, when that came into effect in 1980, something like that, the ADA compliance, I mean, a lot hasn't been done since then. With the new projects that we're doing, we're including the ADA compliance now, but, we need to go back and still work on all those streets, especially the around the parks and so forth, where handicaps and scooters and skateboards and all them people that utilize that. So those are basically just my concerns. I'm glad for all the public input that I got and that I referred to Scott on the issues. And I think all those things have been addressed. Now, I guess it's, kind of time to hear from Bird, see how we can accommodate him or see where we go from here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask her one
Mr.
question?
Mayor, go ahead.
On the app, on the MOU that we currently have, don't have now, but there's discussion about signage and promotional items, not promotional items, but basically to let the public know the rules and that throughout the community. That never came about, and I don't know that if you take care of that, because Elias can't take care of this on his own, you really need, I mean, this is an agreement that, you're stepping up to, and we would want that from the company that, our police officers can't be chasing these scooters, so we need somewhere within the community that type of signage or whatever that, hey, these are the rules. If you could help out, if this does, end up going through, that, we need Bert to really step up and I mean, to do their part also. I mean, not just, there they are, and Elias, good luck, PD, good luck, and, I'm asking, for Bert to step up and in the long run, do their part.
Would you like me to approach to
Yeah.
the comment? So Bird does do a lot of education within the application. So anybody that is using the Bird app goes through an educational process. We can turn up the volume essentially of that education and make sure that we pump out more education and more tutorials, and we can put a banner that has some local rules or regulations. So if there's a certain topic that you want to bring up, it'll pop up as a banner for every rider that comes in Las Vegas and tries to rent the ride. So that is kind of how we educate the rider directly, because that is where they're renting the vehicle, is through that.
Okay. And I haven't seen the app, but I know most typical apps, when we accept, we scroll through the whole thing and just press accept.
So there's multiple, there's little like slide throughs with little pictures, and we have pop-ups so that, like, of course, people sometimes tend to like scroll through that stuff quickly, but we can continue to educate the rider. So not only their first time,
So is there
but
something like
every time.
physically, maybe signage that we could post in some of the most,
Yeah, if you want
most areas,
physical signage, we can provide you with that, and part of the MOU would be giving the city a fee per ride, and that could go towards the cost of getting that signage put up. But we don't want to come in and tamper with the look and feel of your city. We want you to be able to figure out where those properly go and how you want that to appear. But we have a ton of materials that we can provide.
May I address the council, please? Yes. I'm Steve Ledger, and I own the music store for the Virgin House. Mr. Elias invested $100 in a big, huge sign that we put right there that stated the rules very clearly. Okay, the sign is back in my store, but we haven't been in operation in 2 months. So that was one of the signage that we implemented when we realized that we had to educate people more about the rules. And we also purchased a dozen helmets that we have in the bucket. It's optional, but we lend them to whoever wants to use it. And we put a little sticky thing on the scooter that reiterated the rules that they need to adhere to rent the scooters. And
the sticker was actually provided by Bird.
And just what Kate said, having that on the actual application when you do want to activate your Bird, you have to apply, and all those things in that would be another way to educate people on how to ride safely and enjoy themselves.
And it automatically sends all those terms and all of that safety stuff to your email. So you have to put an email in the app. So everybody that rides, automatically every ride you get sent an email with those terms. Even if you ride 5 times, you keep getting sent these terms. So they're throwing it in their face as many times as possible.
And we can, again, edit that to increase the volume and the frequency that those messages go out, so that every time you go to ride a Bird, it reminds you of those things, with illustrations, a lot of things that make it very catchy. And then we do have something called community mode as well, so that if anybody within the community sees a scooter out of place that they don't necessarily want that to be, they're able to go ahead and, click it and a message goes. So we have a lot of the things that we've done and invested in the app to make sure that this is seamlessly integrated. And we work with you, and it's not going to be perfect right out of the gate, because every city is a little bit different. But we have a dedicated account manager that will be working directly to get feedback and work through kind of
One other
adjusting.
question in pertaining to the parking at businesses and stuff like that we know that there's businesses that support, this project, but we know that there's some that, no scooters in front of my place. So how in other communities are they dealing with that? I mean, because those businesses are gonna call us and say, hey, these darn scooters or whatever, you know what I mean? How are those kind of how have you dealt with them in other communities to ensure that, we make that, I don't know, don't park here? I'm just asking how do you deal with that?
So there's designated locations that we can communicate with the fleet managers to make sure that they know where to kind of place them. Then that store manager, if someone goes to their store and parks out front of the store on the curbside politely, if the store doesn't want that vehicle there, they can go and scan the vehicle. That message then goes directly to the fleet manager, who's responsible for going within a 2-hour time period to go move that scooter. And so that's the communication that you'd be able to give to the store owners, that they know how through the app to request that scooter to be moved. And then we can ensure that there is no rebalance nest location where, Elias isn't going to go and, be bringing scooters to that direct location. So there are ways that we can help.
The other issue is that the pickup time. So if I drop it off at the plaza on the Plaza Gazebo, and what's the average time that it gets picked up?
As soon as possible, that's the goal.
And
But within 2 hours.
They get left there until a rider either comes and, if you take a scooter, you drive it to your destination, it gets left there for another rider to come pick that up. Or Elias may come and pick that up and bring it back to an area of high demand. We have heat maps that show where there's high demand and where there's interest. And so our goal is to have vehicles distributed throughout the community so that there's not just a congestion of them in one place. So that if someone takes the scooter that you rented and brought to a business, you're able to look at the map, find somewhere within a close proximity to rent the scooter to get back to your original location.
Thank you.
You have something to say, Mr. Pronto? You have something to say?
Oh, I was just saying that Elias bought a van to be able to move the scooters and pick them up. So he's able to, I've seen him just pick them up and bring them back to La Musica, so he has a van to do that.
To make that process as efficient as possible. So there isn't those instances where I have a scooter on the sidewalk longer than 2 hours or less than 2 hours, and just so there is no public nuisance with these scooters. So it's better for people not riding and people riding.
Wonderful. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
So are you okay with this ordinance, the way it's written?
No, we need the parking to be edited. And then number 9, we would have to change our user agreement. So we request that number 9 is slightly edited just so that it abides by our user agreement that's used in over 200 cities globally.
So you're not wanting to park the scooters out on the street?
We would like to park them, standard protocol is parking them on the curb side of the sidewalk so that you're not interfering with parked cars. So you want to be able to park them on sidewalks on public property. We don't want to be going and getting approval from every store within the city to park it on the sidewalk. And that's how we read it, is that that's the case. If that's not the case, and if we're free and we're misinterpreting the language, then as long as we have the ability to park them along the curb side of the sidewalks.
Why can't they be parked on the curb, like the vehicles?
They're small vehicles. They're not like a car. I could see some elderly driver running into it and just parked in a parking spot.
So you don't see it as somebody running into it in the sidewalk?
They're driving a car on the sidewalk.
Well, no, like a wheelchair or a bicycle.
They get-
Or
they-
some places, there's parallel parking and the cars go all the way a foot or 2 foot into the sidewalk.
Well, training, I've had training through Bird is to put him in a spot on the sidewalk that makes it able for everybody walking wheelchairs to be able to cross that sidewalk with those scooters still on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So, and that's up to me, my job.
But you're saying that if we just allow it to be parked on the curb, on the parking lots where cars parked, then you're out of the business.
If we cannot
That's
place,
not an option for you.
if we cannot place the vehicles in the public right away, along like the sidewalk on the curb, then our business model doesn't work, and isn't gonna be successful. So, we do need the ability to place the vehicles on the curbside of the sidewalk. So there's a section that's, where you put trees, you put newsstands, you put,
Yeah,
street
but
signs.
Our ordinance reads that sidewalk belongs to the business owner or the property owner. They're the ones that maintain it or should be maintaining it and cleaning snow or whatever it might be. So the city would be forcing it upon them, about the business owners to do this, which is not good practice. Now, if I would send a bill to every business to see who wants to allow that in their sidewalks, I mean, that's a different story.
Does the city own the sidewalk, even including where you've planted trees and where you have newsstands, the whole?
From the front of the building to the end of the curb, that's considered what the property owner.
So have you seen the vehicle?
Yeah, I know what a scooter is. There's pictures here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so there.
And I've seen them parked there on 7th Street on the parking where the cars park.
Okay, but they're small.
Yeah.
If they park it on the sidewalk closest to the curb as possible, what's the big deal?
Wheelchairs will still be able to cross right in front of it without any problem.
Not in front of Dick's or in front of,
Well, in those
Those
locations,
places.
what we can do is within the application, we can put a pin that suggests where to park. We have spray paint stencils that we can provide that stencil out kind of just like a square this size. And that's where riders are told to go park. So if there's areas where there's not space within the curb or the sidewalk to park, then we can tell users to go to specific designated
and
locations.
if we, let's say we allow it, and what if the business owners complain to the city, to our staff, that they don't want them there or they're a nuisance?
Then in that case, we'd ensure that the fleet manager doesn't place vehicles there, and they have the ability within the app to, say, hey, the scooter's parked improperly, please come pick it up, and we would, within 2 hours, pick it up. If the chances are that a scooter, though, is in front of their business, there's a good chance that they're going into that business, so it's probably a good thing for the store, because it's ultimately just another version of a parking spot. And they really don't, interfere and to the best interest of people. You would hope that, that people are parking them appropriately. If there's a case where there's someone that just, is parking them in front of doors, we could, remove their access to the app or something like that. But that is not a typical thing that we see.
Are you done, Mr. Mateo?
Thank you.
Right now, this is only for publication. The public hearing would be the next step. So I guess I'm going to ask this question. If we, and this would be to Cassandra, if we were to publish it and approve it, could we, or I've seen where other communities do a 6-month trial period, with an ordinance in place, and if it doesn't work out, then, adaptions are made or different things. How would we do that? We'd have to redo the ordinance
We would amend the ordinance,
at that time?
and we would have to bring it back for publication, adoption, the whole process.
So anything that we add to the ordinance now, we'd have to take it back, redo it, bring it back here, and then publish it, and then the public hearing, so we're talking about three more months.
So I would recommend if you're going to change anything in it, that you would do so now.
Right.
Have Scott make those changes and then publish it that way, and it would come for adoption in July,
Mr. Mayor?
if you want.
So with that, council, and you know,
July.
We have to publish it for, and our next meeting isn't till July unless you call a special meeting, and then we can adopt it.
so with that, and I'll make the suggestion, you know, so we could, you know, again, you know, most of the stuff that I've asked for is in here, you know, the parking, okay, if that could be worked out, but I'm gonna ask, you know, Elias and Bert, you know, that if things don't work out, you know, we don't want to be getting the calls from citizens that, you know, they're a nuisance, you know, and we don't have 100 scooters up and down Bridge Street that, you know, people can't walk, people can't use wheelchairs, you know, and it becomes a burden to where we're getting calls, and we don't want to come to that point. So I'm going to ask this with the liquor establishments, you know, if we could, Scott, and I'll give direction if you guys, you know, if you guys are okay with it, and we can make those changes, and I'll make a motion. But Scott, that we could amend that no parking at the liquor establishments, if you guys are okay, and I mean a main pickup location, and I don't know what you guys call it.
Deployment zone.
Deployment. And the other part is that the sidewalks, but that there's enough clearance for handicap pedestrians, that they're not, you know, nuisance, and then I guess with that, Elias, you know, you just, you know, make sure that that doesn't happen so we don't get the calls, you know what I mean? And with those changes, I make a motion to publish the ordinance.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, and you entertain a second, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari.
Mr. Mayor, question, was, just for a point of clarification, is that on a 90-day trial period, 30-day trial period, or?
Well, I mean, 'cause then we'd have to, I guess we'll see how it goes, and if it doesn't, then we'll change it. I mean, and it'll take a month, well, almost a month and a half to change it, right? So, I mean, we can't really put I know other communities have put, I don't know how they do it or what, but I know they do like a 3 months trial, but the way our charter writes, it's a little different, right? I mean, because we have to publish, then we have to, so we don't have the option of doing a trial ordinance.
And I'd just make one more request for the council to consider, since the appearances you want to move forward, is that the other item that gets changed in here is that the right-of-way, that the vehicles have to yield to bikes and play vehicles, because right now, based on the input I received, that's not the case. I think we need to, with your approval, change on here that automobiles, things driving in the road, have to yield to bicycles and scooters and these other things that are in here.
That's state law.
It is state law. I just want to make sure that this is compliant with state law.
That's your law. Yeah, legislature passed.
So with those breach, I'll amend my motion to include that change also.
There's this motion on the floor, second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilman Cuellar?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you, Kate, for coming to Las Vegas.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Second, next order of business.
Item number 7, request approval of the lodging tax recommendation to provide funding to the Citizens Committee on Historic Preservation to fund the Solar Challenge event and for CCHP to commit to contract requirements for the collection of data. There's no detailed concept, so it's Mr. Hendrickson
Go ahead, Mr. Hendrickson.
and Mr. Francis.
Go ahead, Mr. Briskins. Thank you.
Council and Mr. Mayor, I want to apologize that Mr. Krupek he's working really hard at his hotel, so he's not able to make it here tonight. So I'm here in his stead. Item number 7, we're requesting approval of lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding to the CCHP to fund Solar Challenge promotional materials for the Solar Challenge, and in the amount of $5,000. And Mr. Burskins will answer any questions if you need additional detail on the numbers.
Discussion? It's a pleasure of the council.
So move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Motion to-
request
motion
lodge
to
tax
approve.
recommendations.
By Mr. Montoya, second, please. Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Uribarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next order of business.
Moving on to item 8, request approval of the lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding to the CCHP to fund the New Mexico cruise event and for CCHP to commit to contract requirements for the collection of data and event results.
This is kind of a similar event. New Mexico Cruise event is coming to Las Vegas in August. And they have an entourage and a following, probably exceeding 200 and some odd people, maybe even more, 300, as compared to the last time they were in town. And so this is the CCHP wants to piggyback on the New Mexico Cruise promotions for the event, so we can promote additional things for all these people that are in town to participate outside of the cruise event.
What will the money be specifically used for?
The money is going to be used for promoting the larger picture of the New Mexico cruise event, and the promoter, Michael Gonzalez, wants to make it a weekend rather than just the one day. And by promoting transportation and the Santa Fe Trail Bicentennial, he hopes that participants and their followers will spend the night and beds and heads. And then we will have set up next to the New Mexico cruise registrations for the tours. We want to be able to do self-guided and docent tours of the Santa Fe Trail event. So Michael Gonzalez wants to help promote it on his website. We will be tracking the people who come.
Okay. Any
Can we
discussion?
Can we get a report after all it's done on how the money was spent and the numbers that came in and the heads and beds number and so forth?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then Mr. Hendrickson can report it back to us?
Yes.
And we're gonna put that in the contract agreement, and so we'll attempt to try to get some numbers from our hotels as well to see if we got a bump out of it.
And this is the, what, 5th year? Or how many years has
For the
this?
cruise?
Yeah.
This is the second year in Las
Second year
Vegas.
in Vegas.
But the first time they're going to make it a broader weekend event.
And where's the main event at?
It's going to be on Railroad Street.
On Railroad?
Yes. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to approve the lodger's tax recommendation for the New Mexico cruise event.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Uribarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Uribarri Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Uribarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Moving on to item 9, request approval of the lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding to the Citizens Committee on Historic Preservation to develop and identify Santa Fe trail maps, historical markers, and sites, and for CCHP to commit to contract requirements for reporting the results or projections of the research.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to approve the lodger's tax recommendation for CCHP to develop and identify Santa Fe trail maps.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
The second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Uribarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Item number 10, request.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your work.
Item 10, a request approval of the lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding for the school year 22 New Mexico Tourism Department New Mexico Troop Campaign. We have Virginia Marujo, our multimedia production coordinator, and Mr. Baca, our lodger's
Thank you.
tax director.
Welcome, Mr.
Mayor. Good
Thank
evening,
you.
Mayor and
Welcome.
Council. So we're here tonight to present the FY22 grant with the New Mexico TRU, the State Department of Tourism. And if you look at the packet, we have a breakdown of the sheet of the selections. We have to do a selection process. This year, what we did is we met with, and I want to take this moment before I go further to introduce Margot Segura.
Yeah.
She's the chair of the marketing committee that we just recently got together.
Good
And
evening,
then-
everybody.
Welcome, Marco.
So what we did is we took it to the marketing committee. They looked over, gave us their suggestions and recommendations. And then what we did is we took it to Lodgers Tax. And then Lodgers Tax made their recommendations, which we made a few changes on, and some corrections to the application that needed to be made. And then, Jack, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, so, I'm not sure, Mayor and Council, if you've had a chance to go through the packet, but the decision on this versus all the other decisions that we've made, I mean, for me as chair, this is one of the easier decisions to make. The New Mexico TRU program is, I mean, it's developed well. New Mexico's done well with New Mexico TRU. I mean, if you had to pick it apart, you'd have a hard time. If you had to ask about, hey, how many people are seeing it? How many people are coming into town? I mean, the way the program is set up is very solid. What I can say is for Lodgers Tax, I mean, we're actually underfunding this program. This is well-developed. I would attempt to triple the amount that we spend on here because it provides the proof of where things are going. I mean, it's a no-brainer because it's matched from the state. It's well thought out. If you're trying to ask for numbers, that data is there for each advertisement, each place that they put it. They tell you how we're counting, how we're getting the data, how we can see things are coming back. So you can choose. So we can decide if it's billboard, okay, it's hard to count. If it's a website and if it's telling you, did they click on it or did they just see it, it's giving you that data. It's even giving you data of if you pick a certain advertisement telling you if they actually booked a hotel room in Las Vegas. That's direct information. And so all of these things are well thought out by the state, and actually, the program works even better when we actually are involved at the city level. It works even better when every municipality in the state is involved, and that's how that works. So I mean, out of everything that we've done for Lodgers Tax, I feel the best about this program.
So I see Lodgers Tax funding will be in the amount of $78,000.
Yeah, I did notice that, but I think we increased that by 10,000.
Yeah, I can explain that one. So it was approved for the 80,000, and then Lodgers Tax did approve an additional 10,000 to try to reach some additional places in Arizona. I did reach out to the state to see if they have those options for Arizona, and they didn't. That's why we ended up staying at the 78. And then so we do the 78, and then of course get matched the 50%. Now this year, just some information on the New Mexico TRU grant. This year they did double their budget. And they have two different options. They have a 1-to-1 match and a 2-to-1 match. The 1-to-1 match would go to any of the communities who suffered any loss during COVID. Unfortunately, we weren't one of those, so we're on the 1-to-1 match still. And then we also were given back, because during the FY20, when the pandemic started, the last portion of it was put on pause. So we did get that completed this last week. And that's how we were able to go in this. Also with this, we got a lot of feedback over the last year about really trying to increase the digital presence. And so if you look at this, it has a lot of digital, even in the print includes digital. So we're not just doing print, we're not just doing digital boards. And we did cut out a lot of the billboards. And we do have 7 billboards. So we're going to use those, but we're focusing a lot, again, on the digital aspect. And it does include another photo shoot in here for an additional 30 photos as well.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the funding for the FY '22 NM Tourism Department, NM True Campaign.
There's a motion on the floor. I'll entertain a second, please.
Second as well.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Please roll call us, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Can I just say one more thing before we go? In your packet, we did do some of the fully funded recovery programs during COVID. So we did get video and photo assets. We did get a socially owned media optimization, which means we worked with Google. We have posts that go out through the whole year, plus we got an audit. We're getting an additional audit now in 2021, 2022. We also have a 360 amplification program with Google coming out. So we'll have 360 photos where we can pinpoint certain attractions that they can view and see. And New Mexico True is working with a lot of professional writers throughout, from coast to coast, that are going to be available for us for professional writing content. And they have a new event program coming out so that events can apply for additional funding.
Wonderful.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya.
I would just request that next time you bring something like this, give us the approval from Logistech, the application.
In your packet?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and look, accountability has come up before. This program has accountability built in because they thought about it at the state. And so that's what I can say is that for each thing we select, there's metrics for how well did it do and would we select that program the next time. So Virginia can always come back to you and say, hey, how did we do? And she can give you numbers. And that is the Lodgers Tax Board. That's what we've requested is, hey, how did our program do? Should we choose better next time? But there's always the accountability of, okay, what we chose, what are the results? How many hits did we get? How many, so that's the accountability portion. That's why I like this program so much is it's built in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kritik, for all your help.
I appreciate, thanks for all your help. I appreciate you being here. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, item number 11, request approval of resolution number 21-24, budget adjustment for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. We have our finance director, Jesus Baquero.
Mr. Baquero, go ahead.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to request Major Padilla. Two of the bars are for the police department. First one is for $37,400, and that is the local enforcement permanent fund. And the second bar is for $67,075, and that is your seizures that's coming from your firearms.
Correct.
Can you explain what that money's for in layman's term?
Yes, sir. The Law Enforcement Protection Fund is awarded by the state for our individual officers, certified officers, to provide them with funding for training and equipment. The $67,000 was from seizure donations was placed in there because all the firearms that were in our evidence that were seized were piling up, so we had to get rid of them. So the company that came to get it destroyed the firearms and paid us for that. And we came out to a total of $67,000.
And what are we doing with that money?
We're putting it in budget so that they can spend it.
Okay, very well. Any discussion? Did this go through the budget committee, Michael?
No, sir.
No?
No, we have an issue there, Mr. Mayor, and I explained it to the finance committee. For the purposes of our finances for next year, we're having a meeting on Monday instead of the last Thursday of every month. So it's like I explained to them, you had a concern about things going before the committee, but there's some things and sometimes that because of the time framing that he has to, that he's obligated to, there will not be an opportunity to pass some items through the finance committee.
Very well.
And it will be an after effect kind of thing, and they understand that. And we're gonna distinguish which ones have gone before council already, just so that they know what's going on. But,
Okay, what's the pleasure of the council?
I'll make a motion to approve it, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr.
24.
By Mr. Montoya,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thought you brought your bodyguard tonight, Mr. Vaquera.
I know, I need Bucky.
Next order of business, please.
Business item 12, request approval to award BTU Do It Center the Public Works Utilities Maintenance Inventory Supplies bid. We have our Public Works Manager, Danny Gurula.
Hi, Danny Goulet. Welcome.
Council.
Welcome.
Welcome. I'm here seeking approval to award B2 Do It Center the maintenance grant inventory supply. This will actually help with the purchasing certain items, especially on emergencies as far as like the water heater and stuff goes. They'll have the open PO where they actually can go out and get it. And I stand for any questions.
Mr. Romero?
So Danny, it says you received one single bid. Was there an RFP process?
Yes, we did put it out on the
Procurement was followed. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the inventory supply bid.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Danny. Thanks for staying up late.
Mr. Mayor, our next item is business item 13, request approval of resolution number 21-26. This is a resolution establishing reasonable notice of city council meetings in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Every year, Open Meetings Act requires that council approve a resolution giving reasonable notice of our meetings. So I provided in your packet an item, the resolution shows the changes in red. They are underlined, and then I have there was one section that was added, which was number 8 as per our city attorney. And what I did is, we decided that we would just list the commissions, boards, and committees that were subject to the Open Meetings Act. So that's why a lot of those committees are crossed out. It's not that we remove them, it's just that they're not listed, and they're not subject to the Open Meetings Act.
Got you.
So I will stand for any questions.
Any discussion?
This is effective July 1st.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like the clerk to notify this chairmen of these boards, commissions of their times and monthly meetings or quarterly meetings to make sure that they're in compliance.
Thank you.
So we do that, and we have done that. So
Mr.
we
Mayor.
have a listing.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Just, could you clarify that one more time, Cassandra? You deleted like the tree board and the film commission?
Yeah, so we just deleted them from the resolution because those are not subject to the Open Meetings Act.
Okay,
So that's the only reason.
okay, so the Finance Advisory Committee is
It's
not?
not
Okay, I just want clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
So, Cassandra, we made a motion, we did establish direction, and will this supersede, we made the recording and all that, that's still going to be taking place?
That is correct.
Okay.
So the only thing, the ones that are not subject to OMA, those will be still on YouTube. They still will be listed on our website, but they're not subject to have an agenda or minutes or anything like that as per the Open Meetings Act. Now, if they want to, they can, and a lot of them still do.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Request to approve resolution number 2126, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya. I'll entertain a second.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Please roll call us.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Junior?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next order of business, please.
We have our last item, item number 14. Request approval to confirm the appointment of Mr. Leo Maestas as city manager for the city of Las Vegas and enter into a professional contract. Mr. Mayor, that is your.
Thank you. It brings me great honor. I've had the opportunity to work closely with Mr. Maestas this last year during the pandemic and observed some very, very good managerial skills and task identifications and working with multiple agencies on a very professional level. This county and this city could not have gotten through that pandemic without Mr. Maestas solely. And I'm saying that because he worked hard to procure everything from gloves to masks to vaccines to working with all the different agencies throughout the state to get our hospitals and going. And again, I just thought he did an exemplary job with the pandemic. I hope you never have to work through another pandemic again, Mr. Maestas, and I hope none of us do. But once again, it's my pleasure to introduce to the council my selection for city manager, Mr. Leo Maestas. And at this point, I will call for a motion and a vote.
I have a question.
Yes.
Or I have a couple of questions. If you could please come forward. Yeah. One, I would like you to publicly, so it's also kind of for the public to talk about your education and your experience. Because often a lot of people don't read through your resume. So if you could just speak to us a little bit about your education and your experience.
Yes, ma'am. I did spend a year at Highlands from 99 to 2000. I then went on to UNM for another year there. Started working in industry in a trades field. We worked in that for about 8 years until the economy went downhill, declined. I went back to school, finished associates in construction technology and management. And after that, I worked for biomedical research in Albuquerque on experimental drugs and devices that were then disseminated across the globe for studies, and which brought me back to Las Vegas after a family member was diagnosed with cancer, and we decided to move home and see if we can help our community to move forward.
I'd also like to bring up a couple of things, just from some calls that I received from about three to four different residents. And I do want to state this, nothing against you, Mr. Maestas, but they were very concerned that it wasn't an open process, that we did not accept applications. These individuals wanted to apply for the position. So they were very concerned that it wasn't an open process, and that applications were not accepted, or resumes, and then a committee to select the city manager. And that was my concern also, that I brought forward at a previous meeting, because I would have liked to see it open. So various people in our community, and we have a lot of individuals who, you know, have come out of Highlands with their masters in leadership and management, and they were just a little concerned that they didn't get to apply for this position.
Thank you.
So I do want to state that publicly.
Thank you. Any other comments, concerns?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your recommendation. We are following the city charter. I think the city charter in this section needs to be revamped or looked at again. That's going to be one of the items that I recommend to the city charter on the process of hiring a city manager. The contract that we have for Mr. Maestas begins on what date? Today, if he's hired today?
His start date would be the June 17th.
June what?
I don't know, 17th?
When was that?
June 17th?
Okay. Well, the student, it's blanked in his contract, that's what I'm asking.
There's not an existing contract.
There's a contract right here before me.
I know, but it's, this
That's
is.
why I'm
too-
asking, when are we gonna hire him?
Right.
Yeah, what's the date he starts on board?
Right.
Tonight, tomorrow, next week, June 30th?
Yeah, June 17th.
June 7th. Thank you. And the other question I had, Mr. Maestas, are you in agreement with the compensation in this contract?
There's been no discussion on the compensation.
You have not seen your contract?
I have not.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, if we're going to put this out to vote, I think we need to go into executive session at this time and discuss some items with Mr. Maestas.
Is that a motion, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Second?
Before he accepts or before we vote on it.
I second.
Second?
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, we're going to
Yes.
need the exemption, and I believe it's Sandra?
NMSA 1978-10-15-1H2,
I'm sorry.
discussion of hiring, promotion, promotion.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Junior?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. If you'll all give us a I just want to get out of this meat locker, it's cold.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I make a motion to enter regular session after being in executive session for personnel matters as permitted by section 10-15-1H2 of the Open Meetings Act. I'd like to know for the record that only those matters discussed in executive.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
So there's a motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call us, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
Make a motion to approve Leo as the next city manager.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr.
Second.
Romero, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Rivera Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda was the contract, but can we, maybe you and Leo enter into negotiations and present that at the next council meeting?
Absolutely. And I'd just like to offer the floor to Mr. Maestas and let you see what, and introduce Candace, please.
Sure. Mayor Trujillo and councilors, first I'd like to, on behalf of my wife and myself, this is my wife Candace Maestas, on behalf of our family, we'd like to thank you for recognizing the leadership and the management that we've done over the past 4 years here in our city. We have a lot of things to do. We're prepared to hit the ground running. We have a great relationship with Dr. Taylor, so we can be a smooth transition for the next few weeks to continue projects that are in the works and get them finished out. We owe it to our citizens to be mindful of their budget so we can get projects done to the end. As long as we have senior and elected officials all on the same page, we can continue to move forward and make Las Vegas a greater city to live in. Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to take the job. Thank you. Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, adjournment.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Montoya, second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
They misspelled your name on this.
Did they? I didn't even notice.
Trujillo, they ended with a P and not a O.
Oh, look at that.